Victory comes at a cost. A momentary pause while all regroup. But now, I have the lock. Bring me the key. And united, we will strike at the heart of darkness.
So funny story, okay? Funny story. We did the monthly or monthly Convocation of Empyreans meeting, where I changed over the audio, and I made sure to change over the audio so that way Dutch Gunner could hear me, but I forgot to change over my mic so that way you guys could hear me. So let's just pretend like I did my announcement correctly. It is October 10th, YC126. This is the Eve Universe Show. Thank you guys so much for coming. Settle in, like the stream. Please like the stream. Just for mercy. No, I've got Dutch Gunner here. He's here to save me from myself. Let me make sure that your audio is on. How you doing, Dutch?
Hi, Ash. Happy to be here. Doing great.
You're doing great. I'm messing everything up. It's okay. We are, Dutch Gunner is here because he is running for the convocation. Can we come back tomorrow and try again? Is that okay?
I would say grab a drink, have a sip, calm your nerves, and restart your brain.
I did forget. I did not, my puppy did not allow me to get my second cup of coffee this morning. So you're right. I'm going to just blame that the whole time. Anywho, we do have Dutch Gunner here who is running for the Jesus fuck!
The CSM.
The Council of Stellar Management. The Convocation of Stellar Management. Oh man, CSM 19, who he's running there as a lore candidate. He's run in the past. We've done interviews in the past. Today was supposed to be kind of our sit-down interview. I'm not sure if we're going to be able to like sit down and have like an official CSM interview today, because we have a lot of other things to talk about, but I am actually very thankful that you are here today, because you are the person that I would probably have been calling up to see what you have to think about this. Anyways, so let's just jump into it. We have Eve Revenant. So we've detected ghost orbs, ghost riding, and freezing temperatures. We have a Revenant on our hands. The Deathless is planning some sort of counterattack, it may seem. We are currently outside of the structure in Zarzak that has been decloaking. The Deathless has put up a Raituru, as we can see, and people can turn into that Raituru the clone samples, the hyper whatever clone samples from the Blood Raider event, as well as the Evadams, which is from a new thing that is dropping today and was from the convoy from a few days ago. We've got a lot to catch up on, but let's just go ahead and start with Dutch. How have you been?
I've been great. I mean, the last couple of weeks have been a bit hectic with, on the one hand, the campaigning, organizing the interviews, keeping track of everything, what's happening. And at the same time, I was just relaxing, enjoying the Blood Raider event, and looking forward to what was going to happen with the convoy and what followed up next. And yeah, I'm excited for what's going to come next.
Now, you were participating in the Drifter Siege event. In fact,
Yep.
you're one of the major people that that gave me information, that let me know what was going on. How was that? How did that go?
The event was cool. The sites were a bit unbalanced between the PvE side and the PvP side. But I would say that basically you could compare it with an advanced version of Homefronts. You had an
Right.
objective that was challenging, and you could have different approaches, but the further you got, the more challenging it became. Uh, there was a lot of theory crafting on what ships would work, what ships wouldn't work, and more importantly, how do you get those famed officer drops from the drifters or sleepers?
Did you manage to get any?
No, no.
Ah.
We did have a theory. Unfortunately, we didn't get to test it because by the point we uh, wanted to test it out and to actually see if we could go from start to finish, the end was announced, and the big groups really started to clamp down on trying to monopolize the sites.
Yeah.
So it became, because of the earlier discrepancy I mentioned, the disbalance between the PV and the PvP, um, we had to pull the plug to avoid
Right.
just getting dumpstered all the time.
So one thing that's
Um,
important, I'm actually going to skip back. I'm going to jump back into that video real quick. See if I can change
Yeah.
this. So this structure that we're seeing here,
That's the siege structure.
Victory.
yes, that right there is 100% the siege structure
Yep.
from this event. And if we look at the next scene,
Comes at a cost.
you can clearly see a Drekavik, and as it pans, you can see that there's a Vexer and there's an Augurer
Guardian.
or a Guardian, which are
Actually,
all...
if you look at the earlier shot, you could see the remain of, I believe it's a drifter battleship.
yeah, I think I can see a Drifter battleship here on the left-hand side, and maybe even one more at the bottom. But the point is that this is clearly showing the siege sites, and in fact, it's showing basically the equipment that people were using in the siege sites. So a direct reference to that. So knowing that, let's listen to what he says again.
Victory comes at a cost. A momentary pause while all regroup.
So a momentary pause. So victory comes at a cost, a momentary pause while all regroup. And then it shows a very particular picture, which I thought I had pulled up, but I do not. It was definitely a picture of, hold on. See if I can grab that frame exactly. Probably not. It is, no, that's going to be impossible. It is a picture of a drifter female. Oops. There we go. While I try to pull this up, you go ahead and talk about. Yes. Fuck. I had to shut off the... Okay. Look. I had to shut off the desktop audio because of the fact that it was playing the trailer. Sorry, go on.
That's okay. We'll start from the beginning. So basically what happened was the Zarzak has been discovered. The Fulcrum is in there. There's a lot of Jovian technology. There's still large parts of the station that haven't been discovered or put online yet. And the drifters basically try to enter Zarzak. They interacted with the gate. This triggered a response from the station, the Fulcrum, that basically locked the drifters out. So the drifters and the sleepers started to lay siege to Zarzak. In order to
Right.
get in, they started to use specific seed structures, and those siege structures could be encountered in the horizon siege points. If you got in, a short timer would start, and then you had 2 minutes to deal enough damage to basically deplete all of its shields. If you succeeded within the 2 minutes, it would count down. There would be a 50-second cooldown, 15 seconds. Then the next wave would spawn, and every time you completed a wave and depleted the shields, part of the armor went with it. And if you managed to make it through all 10 waves, you would destroy the structure.
Right.
And the cool part was that between waves, you had reinforcements from sleepers. And in the second, fifth, and eighth wave, you would have a generator in which you could put a resonance element. And if you put in the right one, you would trigger a name drifter. And if you put in the wrong one, you would just get a drifter strike cruiser. All the cruisers did not have a doomsday. And we theorized that if you put all three resonances in the correct order, then in the final 10th wave, you would trigger a drifter battleship. That drifter battleship did have a doomsday. And if you managed to blow that one up, then you had an opportunity of getting one of the officer modules. That was the theory. We didn't get to test it. We did get to confirm that, yes, you could complete the site with just 10 ships. So that's an achievement in its own. But it was a lot of fun. Unfortunately, at the later waves became so challenging that you really had to commit all the damage you had on the structure, that you couldn't really focus on anything else, especially if you were a bit unlucky in the earlier waves where a lot of logistical NPCs would spawn, where you were no longer able to basically break the sleepers that were there with the incoming remote reps from their own. So you just had to commit to the structure. And what happened to us in the end is they brought in 2 ECM frigates that burned away beyond 100 kilometers and started to put on the ECM on the different ships. And that basically resulted is us in not having enough DPS, damage starting to split from the NPCs. So we had to cycle more with remote reps when Logi got jammed, and we could not complete the site anymore. And there was nothing we could do against the frigates that came in because we had to keep all our damage on the site. So either if we try to do something against the people trying to disrupt us, we would fail the site. And if we tried to complete the site, it took very little to make sure that we couldn't clear the site.
Right.
And when that happened, we actually went with 16 people and 10 DPS ships. So it takes some considerable effort to overcome that discrepancy, but it was a lot of fun. Would have loved to take on the Drifter and actually dodge the Doomsday, but maybe in the near future.
Okay, yeah. And it's important to note that these sites were only spawning in the 4 systems adjacent to Zarzak, which made them both low-sec or null-sec systems. So these were incredibly dangerous sites. And, because they were very valuable, a lot of the big players were not only trying to run them, but were actively attempting to disrupt other people from being able to run them. So that way they could keep their juicy, juicy treasures for themselves. However, that part was kind of part 2 of a series of events that was happening. There was the fishing event that happened, which allowed us to get the electron spin resonances, which were then used in that Drifter event site, right? And about that same time, we start to see this structure, which you can kind of see down below us. It's flickering. That structure begins to decloak, right? Now, as the siege comes to an end, before the siege started, we got a map unveiled over time that really seemed like it was the Drifter map, or a Drifter map of Zarzak with this thing in the middle. And that thing ended up being this thing that's decloaking. So clearly, whatever this is so important that it triggered the Drifters to attempt to attack Zarzak. Now, Drifters have always had a strong interest in artifacts of the Jovian Empire, right? Like one of the very first things they did was go after the Jovian observatories. In fact,
Yep.
all drifter wormholes spawn in systems with Jovian observatories specifically. So it would appear that whatever that the Deathless is up to in the Fulcrum has triggered the drifters' hostility. Now, the drifters have overall been fairly nebulous in their goals and objectives. We do know that they are against the Triglavians, and it seemed like, at least at first, this stuff had to do with fighting in the Abyss against the Triglavians. You know, the fishing event and the Capsuleer Day event before that suggested that there was this increased hostilities between the Drifters and Triglavians, which then led directly into the Drifters now attacking Zarzak. It is unsure. There is no, as of right now, correct me if I'm wrong, but there is no clear connection between the Deathless and the Triglavians.
Correct.
So
At
this
least
is
none that I've been able to pick up on.
right. The Deathless has never made an allusion towards working with the Triglavians. There's been no whatever, but they do, in fact, now apparently have a mutual enemy in the Drifters. So that leads us to kind of what we had today. No, sorry. Then we had a convoy.
Mm-hmm. But to get back on the drifters, they're pretty much antagonistic against everyone. And the big question is, did they want to get into Zarzak to get their hands on it, either because they want it for their own because they need it? Would they try to deal with it because they don't want anybody else to get their hands on it, just to deny that possible technology? Or is it something that could actually be a threat to them? Like, that's the big question.
Right. Was it an act of desperation? Was it an attempt to recover a weapon? I do find it interesting. So, like, in the New Eden news that was surrounding all of this, there's like this, oh, did he find the thing? Is it a weapon? It might not be a weapon. It might be an opportunity. He calls it the lock. And the Adavums are the key. Now, let's talk about Adavums. So around the time that this structure began to decloak, the head of the Harada Oki, who was at the same time coordinating the drifter response, right? So the caravan master Malaya Harada was the was running the counter drifter operations, and then once that was over, kind of suggested to the player base and to anybody who came by that the Harada Oki was going to be conducting a caravan from a Thucker Mix facility in Alterer, I think it was, at 1500 on Tuesday. That happened. That caravan went out and was, of course, destroyed in the first jump into Lowsec by Fraternity. And however, it was attacked by Blood Raiders prior to that. While it was still in high sec, a group of Blood Raiders attacked, and that was pushed off by the players. And it's also worth noting that while the caravan itself seemed to be carrying these Adavums, which we'll be getting into what they are in a minute, those dropped, and several of them were in fact returned to the Deathless successfully. However, after the first one was delivered that I saw, somebody delivered the first one. They received a thank you from her caravan master, but then the caravan master started telling people, "Hey, wait, these will be we'll give out more details about how to turn these in soon." Today is soon. So starting today, we now have this Raitaru here where people can turn in the clone samples that were dropped from the Blood Raider sites, and not the Tetramon ones, but the special ones, the super rare ones, and the Adavums can be turned in here. I don't know what they turn in for yet. Do you?
No, all the info we have right now is that in due time there's going to be unique items for which they can be traded. We don't know what for, and at the same time, we do know that the Society of Conscious Thought is interested in buying them.
Right. Yes. The conscious thought, Society of Conscious Thought, is coming into play in this story quite a bit, especially today. Unsure. The new ships in the expansion that they just announced, Noisy Gamer, that is potentially a good idea, and probably one of the things I thought of too. But the problem is that people can trade them in today, and I don't think those BPCs are in the game right now. So, yeah. Yes, the atoms are dropping in relic sites, correct. So it is worth noting, we do have, pull this up real quick. Maybe. Launcher, chat, browser. So here is the Hobo leaks from today. And we see a total of 44 new items were put in today, right? So we have the Deathless Engineering Complex, which is the thing that we're out in front of. There is all of these journal entries, which I do want to talk about. There's a Deathless Fenrir Freighter, which I'm not sure if that's been found yet. There's encrypted infomorphs, which I believe is related to the expansion. We have the new Satori Horigu combat scanner probes. We have a new black glass-like hacking implant set called the Blue Fire. We have a Deathless Circle relic analyzer. And we have the Deathless Research Consignment, which is the package that you get when you turn in an atom. We have a bunch of new colors and patterns, as well as the Deathless Research Honorum, which is probably just a ISK token that can be sold at Sarzak. We have the Deathless Research Superior Consignment, which is for the hypercatabolic clone tissue. So if you turn in hypercatabolic clone tissue, you get a Deathless Research Superior Consignment. If you turn in an atom, you get a Deathless Research Consignment. So apparently the hypercatabolic clone tissue is the more valuable one of the two. And then there's some Arkham Arisen skins. So it's not 100% clear what the rewards are. It could just be the Skinner components, as well as the SSCT Corp, not Alliance stations, I believe, have checked under Corp's SSCT Alliance with Atom and cargo and no options to trade or sell. They may not be updated yet. So, what do you think about how this is playing out? There, Dutch, you're the lore guy.
Well, like, what it seems like right now is that this is probably something with a staggered approach, where CCP has a certain threshold where if people provide enough of the different elements, something is going to happen, something's going to be published. And depending on how well we do or what decisions we make, like either do we hand it over to Society of Conscious Thought or do we hand it over to the Deathless, we're going to see what happens from there. Like, I'm sure there's going to be threshold, and we're not sure what is inside the packages. It's probably going to be a different assortment of things. And it just, like, this is currently in Hobo Leak, so I'm not sure if that means that it's completely live yet.
People are getting the drops, and of course you can turn things in. I just don't have any record of what you get when you turn it, like what's inside the box. I don't see.
Yeah, me neither.
So, yeah.
But
so
yeah,
one of the criticisms that have been coming out of this, or one of the things that has been talked about with this, was the fact that basically CCP effectively used the exact same plot that they used a year ago, or I guess 6 months ago, whatever it was, right? So, like, thing is happening, mystery abounds, there's going to be a convoy, oops, convoy gets blown up, announcement is posted for several days later on YouTube. Premiered, expansion announced. Literally, I just described both Equinox and Revenant. So the question is, like, how do you feel about that? Do you feel, are you on the are you on the side of the people that are like that are against the fact that this is reused? Do you think that this is reused, or do you think this is a tried and like now proven method of telling the story?
It really depends on what you want to do. Like if you want to make it quote unquote realistic, then they would probably start looking at using a jump freight or something else to make sure that there is next to no real threat to the convoy, or you could
Right.
put a lot of focus on uh, hey, look, we're going to do this over here, and then bring in the real transport through the back door while nobody's really paying attention to it. And while that would make sense, that doesn't make for an entertaining event, because players will have the feeling like, yeah, but it's scripted. There's nothing we could do. We don't really have an impact on it.
Right.
So with that
But
regard,
people
like if you're
suggest that
trying
this
to
is
do it,
scripted too.
yeah, but if you're trying to do something like this, you'll never get it right. There will always be people complaining about how you ran it. At the
Right.
same time, like we don't know what would have happened if the convoy did make it. Like there was a high
Yeah.
probability it would be destroyed, but at the same time, what's to say that if the convoy was safeguarded and made to its destination, there could be a completely different reward for the people that made sure that the convoy got there. That's the part we never know, and that's where
Right.
the decision was made. We'll go for the uh, quick solution and the quick reward now, and that way we at least have this.
Yeah. That is one of the things that that bothered me about this argument, and I see this all the time. The same was true with invasions and stuff. This idea that like, oh well, this was already predetermined, or oh, it's boring that they're still doing they're doing the same thing over and over again. We are the ones that did the same thing over and over
Yep.
again. It was entirely player choices. We did this both times, and even if. And another thing that I point out all the time when it comes to these kinds of lore events, to your point, it could have been something that just happened in the background, but it wasn't. These now have kill mails. People are on there. There are individuals who decided to scoop up ativums and deliver them. All of these, like, it is a thing that has happened now, as opposed to, you know, whatever. Like, it may seem relatively minor, but I've said this many times before. In a year from now, when I'm telling Vanguard players how all of this came to be, this is part of that story. We are making, writing, and living through the prehistory of what comes next, basically.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
So as a person who wants to be on CSM, having seen all this stuff and having experienced firsthand a lot of this rollout, from trying to run the events in spite of the fact of how dangerous they are, to being very knowledgeable about the drifters from the very beginning, what do you say to CCP? What is your analysis of what's going on? And do you have any suggestions for their team as to how they can make the lore come alive, like they seem to be trying to, better?
Well, let's first start that they've already been iterating on it by quite a bit, by starting to regularly publish the new Eden News. They started to pick up the scope videos again. So that is ongoing.
You say that, but we haven't had a scope video in like 6 months.
No, true, but we have had multiple updates in the new Eden News. So that's the part where even if, like, they have a finite amount of resources they can spend on development and trailers and news items, and a scope video is probably going to take a lot more compared to a new Eden News. And at the same time, because there's not that many scope news videos, when it does happen, people go, oh, wait, it's a new scope video. What's happening? So it's more like the big items you could use the scope news. Otherwise, you've got the new Eden News publications. And it really depends on what CCP wants to do. And that's something that if I was on the CSM, I could ask them and they could tell me, because I would be under NDA. and that means I can't really explain it other than, um, for instance, if the goal for CCP was to introduce those items and get them in player hands, this was a great success. The convoy was there, it was up for grabs, people blew up the convoy, grabbed it, there was a struggle for people to get the people trying to get away with it. It's in the hands of the players now, they can have choices, and that sparks autonomy and initiative to the players. Like, what are you going to do? Your actions are going to have an influence and decide on what's going to happen next with this part of the story. And they could have different scenarios depending on what we players do. But if it was just more about, hey, this is a big moment in the history of the setting, and they wanted to just have players be witness of it and be there and experience the grandeur, then this wouldn't have been such a great event.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, like a good example of that would be like the Turner event, which was a very visually interesting thing for those who were participating in it. But even then, people were like, what, that's it? And I think that that is a big piece of all of this, is that like no one moment in these events is going to be this giant turning point for everyone, which I think people seem to want. But that isn't how this works.
No,
Oh, yeah.
it's not. It's about the bigger moments to draw attention. Like, hey, this is happening, or this is where you could tie in basically the further expansion on the lore and the setting with the game element, because that's a really important and difficult thing to balance, because on the one hand you've got a living and breathing setting, and on the other hand it's still a game. So you need to find the correct balance between the two, and it makes sense that they prioritize the game element a bit more than the lore.
Right.
And at the same time, I mean, small things can still have a really big impact for the people that were there. For instance, the bombing runs that I took out on I did on the rogue drone structure in Wirashoda and Poshvan, there was a brief mention in that in a new Eater News. People that were participated, it was a single line, like it wasn't a lot of text, but the people who were there, for them it was huge, because there was an acknowledgement of their actions.
Yeah, and for at least one person, I'm sure, I'm speculating, but I'm sure like that's the kind of thing that's like, well, this is now my biggest moment in Eve, or gaming, right? Like it got recognized. Even that such a minor thing is such a big deal. And I think that that's a big piece to all of this, because you know, as you said, or as we were talking about, like on the one hand, one could suggest that if you jump a convoy into LowSec while warning everybody 3 days ahead of time, bad things are going to result. On the other hand, that is such an interesting opportunity. That person that did grab that out of them and bring it in, like that's a memorable thing for them. That is an important moment, and that should definitely not get discounted.
Well deserved bragging rights, and then that person got flooded with, hey, I'd like to have some, what would you like in return? Like that
Right.
that is the highlight. Like, even if you could say like, hey, look, we're just a smaller group, there wasn't much that we could do, but we did deny the attackers this batch of of the big item that they needed, and we got our hands on it, and now it's up to us to decide what to do with it. And that's awesome.
Now, to that end, you mentioned earlier that they could have used jump freighters. I do want to point out, because it was like pointed out at the time, the Thucker used exclusively Thucker ships, right? So they used the Vagabond, and they used the
Panther?
yeah, the Panthers. So I was even making the joke that they could have bridged the Panthers, but then somebody else pointed out that the jump freighter, the Nomad, is also Thucker, and Alternator, whatever, this system that's right behind me in the new news that they came from, is within jump range of Turner. So in theory, they could have just jumped directly to Turner and then gone into Zarzak directly, skipping the entire convoy, but they didn't. Do you think, lore-wise, do you think that this was intentional? One of the things that I thought about was that, like, it could very well be that this was meant to fall into players' hands, because it's like, oopsie.
Well, that's the interesting part with the New Eden News item that covered it. Um, they disguised themselves as people that belong there, people that were employed there. If you use a panther, a vagabond, and you use transport ships, that doesn't necessarily raise that many alarms. But if you start bringing in a nomad, that could draw attention. So the nice plot twist was that everyone was like, okay, so what were they doing at station? And then people are looking, actually, according to our records, we don't have that. We start looking, we found empty spaces that aren't there on the blueprints. We never knew that this space existed.
Right. So to that end, actually, I want to read, this is the New Eden News from yesterday. One of the things that was interesting about the convoy being destroyed was that apparently the Thucker Mix were unaware of what was happening. You know, we got the warning from the Harada Oki that they were going to be doing this convoy from here last week, but it turns out that the Thucker Mix, who owns the facility, was not aware that this was going to happen. So either way, this is the New Eden News from October 9th, YC126. Alterner Metropolis. Thucker Mix CEO Agar Aldenold has called the Republican tribal authorities to crack down on the Harada Oki caravan following acts of theft. Members of the caravan masqueraded as Thucker Mix workers in order to infiltrate a Thucker Mix station and stage an illegal convoy. The Harada Oki caravan is a Thucker clan notorious for its criminal activities and known to be associated with the Deathless Circle. Yesterday, a group of Harada clan members managed to register themselves as transport specialists and infiltrate a Thucker Mix factory in orbit around Alterner 7. Once they infiltrated the station, they stole a variety of items stored there, including combat probes, relic analyzers, synthetic synapses, and nanoelectric microprocessors. Those were all things found in the cargo of the ships, by the way. Agar Aldenold has condemned the Harada Oki as petty thieves and disrespectful anarchists who give all law-abiding Thuckers a bad name. She called on both the Republic Security Services and Republic Justice Department to take actions against the renegades. She even went so far as to suggest that Anar Ebold, chief of the Thucker tribe, should banish them from the tribe. Chief Anar Ebold has yet to comment on this suggestion. However, sources close to the Thucker leader suggest that he has been seriously considering what action the tribe should take against these rebels. The Republic Justice Department has investigated the Thucker Mix station in Alterner following the Harada Oki infiltration. They have informed the scope that their investigation has uncovered evidence in addition to their theft of valuable items. They broke into a sealed containment area within the facility. According to legitimate Thucker Mix employees, no one working the station was even aware that this containment area existed. The scope has pulled the original blueprints of the station, and the sealed area is not present in any of them. Thucker construction teams have confirmed it is not present when the station was built. RJD agents have revealed that there is gaps in the archive's security logs relating to a maintenance corridor on which the secret area is situated. These gaps date all the way back to YC113. Following yesterday's incursion of the contaminated area, or containment area, is now unsealed and empty. According to Thucker scientists, the only evidence of what was once stored there was the anomalous gravity stress fractures on the inside walls. Following their heist, a criminal clan formed up outside the station with a number of Capsuleer accomplices. Due to their Thucker Mix credentials, they were not flagged by security forces, and then began moving as a convoy, which believed to have been headed towards Zarzak. A group of Blood Raider hunters attempted to attack the convoy in Kaleli, but were easily dealt with by the Harada Oki and the Capsuleer escorts. Despite the initial success, the Harada Oki's flight was ultimately doomed. As soon as they left the safety of high-security space, however, the convoy was fired upon by Capsuleer pilots. All the Harada Oki ships were believed to have been destroyed in this attack. Following this destruction, rumors have begun to surface about the contents of the caravan, including previously unseen device known as the Adavum. According to these unsubstantiated rumors, there is evidence that some Capsuleers completed the Harada's route and delivered these Adavums to the Fulcrum and Zarzak. What the Deathless Circle's ultimate plan is for these mysterious items, however, still remains to be seen. Federation news in brief. Federation ships activity in Afe, no cause for concerns, says authority. Core Complexions Inc. holds innovative fair for Sebester inventors. Refugee holds somber vigil on New Caldari for worlds lost in Prochfin formation. and Mind Clash Museum opens in Kalali. And that is the New Eden News for October 9th, YC126. Let's talk about it. So, gravity stress marks. Yeah, so this is related to the Atavam itself. If we go look at the Atavam in-game, whoops, hold on. If we look at the Atavam, it says
Look it
left
up.
behind by...
I'm going to
What?
hijack it for a moment.
Yeah.
Because the cool part on what CCP is doing here is that for the people who are interested in the lore, they can pay attention to this. They might pick up on clues. They might start digging in what has happened in the past, because CCP has shown a remarkable talent for tying events many years apart
That's true.
together for an ongoing and well-connected story. Yet at the same time, if you don't care about the lore, if you just want to play the game and enjoy what you want to do, you still get the information, you can do what you want to do, and you're not missing out on anything by not
Yes.
paying attention to the lore. And if you do, it's an enhancement to your experience, but it's not mandatory. And that's something CCP should get a lot of credit for. And I'm very happy that they probably intend to do so, because at FanFest last year, they already mentioned that they hired an additional writer.
Right.
So that's a clear sign and a good sign that CCP is not giving up on the lore and the story-driven delivery of content, where this event with the caravan is a clear example of.
So the Atavam's description says, left behind by ancient Jovian explorers, the original purpose of this artifact is a mystery. A scan suggests it has been inactive for centuries, yet even in this state, it subtly warps the surrounding fabric of spacetime. Though non-functional, this device can still provide researchers valuable insights into Jovian technology. The Deathless Circle offers unique trades for the Atavam and Zarzak, while the Society of Conscious Thought will pay for any delivery delivered to their station. So, the word Atavam, by the way, means ancestor, like ancient ancestor, like great-great-grandfather or before. So, it's interesting, but it is subtly warping the surrounding fabric of space-time. It has weird gravitational forces built into it, which is why it was causing damage to the containment vessel that it was in. Now, one thing that is interesting about this, actually, I had looked this up, but I didn't think it was important until I just reread that right now. So let me pull this up real quick. The system of Altriner, whatever, has been in the news once before. Now, in this article that we just read, it specifically says these gaps date all the way back to YC113. So the question is, did something specific, and to your point, that I have found, at least, they often put little details in these in these news articles, such that if you Google them, you kind of get led to the an answer of sorts, right? So if we look into this system, Altriner, in YC113, what we actually find is Sanchez Nation's vessels under the command of slave Aton 9 are currently attempting to invade the system of Altriner. At approximately 9:15 New Eden time, slave Atrion 09, piloting a Revenant Nation supercarrier, invaded the solar system with a fleet of supporting Sanchez Nation's battleships and cruisers. At 2000 New Eden, a fleet of over 40 Capsuleers warped to the hostile vessel and engaged the Sanchez forces. More than 100 Capsuleers rising from across New Eden are forming up in fleets to attempt to destroy the hostile Sanchez forces. Slave Ation 09 mocked the Capsuleers as they arrived in the system. Quote, "It's going to take more than a fleet of half a dozen pods to challenge me." Capsuleer Amzi, who is currently fighting the Sanchez forces in Altriner, seems upbeat about their chances of victory. Quote, "We have gained experience from the previous attempts, and we will do our best. At the time of this publishing, the battle is ongoing." So there was an invasion of Sanchez forces in Altriner, and they made kind of a big deal about it. The slave was able to escape back through a wormhole. It makes me wonder, if so the reason why this is kind of important is because Sanchez Nation, of course, has a wormhole creation generator, and that was clearly used in this attack as well. So this could very well be stuff that was hidden or recovered during this time and then hidden within the structure. Do you think I'm onto something?
Could be. I mean, I've seen people already make a deep dive, and they made an interesting connection, um, for which I'm currently going to say let's put on our tinfoil hats because there is no clear link yet. But I'm going to ask the question to you, Ash. Hilan Tukos, what corporation did he quote unquote defect to?
Oh man, he defected to Eifer and Co, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Mimitar.
Yep. And part of the things he was particularly interested in was wormhole space and the drifter hives.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
with the siege points, they also mentioned that the devices were gravimetric in nature,
Right.
and that hidden space had gravimetric distortion, had gravimetric stress fractures.
Right. But the Thucker mix is not Eifer and Co, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't see if I understand the connection. How would it be in a Thucker mix factory then? The thing I get, so here's the thing about Thucker for me in Valkyrie, the quartermaster, who by the way works with the Deathless and apparently was working with the Deathless, I think, all the way back then. In fact, it's very possible that the Deathless is the person that the quartermaster says that he's taking orders from.
Plausible, yeah.
So the Deathless is hunting for something, redirects a Stargate to a secret Thucker facility where they've attempted to expunge the data, but he finds the location of a drifter hive in the expunged data. So Thuckers were clearly doing something with the drifters all the way back then.
Well, we know that the drifters have their wormhole transportation conduit, and Thuckers are all about the moving life. Like they're constantly on the move with the caravan. So if this is an alternative way to travel and giving the option to bypass the Stargate systems, of course they're going to be interested.
Right.
But once again, this is just based on the theory crafting that I've seen from other people, and I'm just building upon it. And this is not canon. This is me just thinking out loud about what connections could there be.
Right. And another big piece to all of this is that, remember, a lot of this has to do with infomorphs and those kinds of things. One of the things I wonder is, how does the Adavum relate to this new decloaking structure, right? How does the key unlock the lock? And if the lock is unlocked, what does that lead to, right?
Well, if there is a comparable situation between that structure and the fulcrum, that would mean that it has been inactive for so long, it needs to be charged, it needs to be activated, and this could be part of the things that help act as a battery and charge it up. There's a lot of things that we don't know, and trying to figure it out what it could be and theory crafting and building upon it, that is part of the fun. And that's why I love calling the our community my home.
Right. And there has been a lot of really good information coming from the art community. By the way, if anybody has any of the screenshots of the messages being posted, That is a big thing right now, and I don't have enough of them right now. So we have these records from Dr. Yosef Akata, which dates all the way back to YC110, which YC110 529. I had that pulled up, I think, right? Did I? I did at one point. All right, whatever. Hold on. January, February, March, April, May. 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 So May is Empyrean Age. May 2010 is the Empyrean Age. So we see the rise of Tibus Heth, the Malakan disaster, all that stuff happened. The dread attacks, the use of the Jamil Sorum super weapon, all that happened in May of YC110.
Yep,
which
getting
is
your hands on the logs and starting to shift through the data, trying to find any clues and confirm if they're actually clues or not. Go at it. I'll certainly try.
the missing piece is the fulcrum can do what it's meant to do. I think that the fulcrum is meant to allow infomorphs to be like distributed throughout the universe, right? Like I think it really is Vanguard, because if you watch the trailer, I mean, like the facility seems to be a cloning center with built-in virtuality. So it does seem like a place to contain infomorphs to deploy remotely. An infomorph superhighway, exactly. So it is one interesting to wonder what is this structure going to be going for, especially with what we know is coming with the expansion, which we should probably just jump into that at this point. We've been burying the lead for long enough. Revenant is coming on the 12th of November, guys. So we have the next expansion. Yes, there's an infomorph item in the Hobo items too. However, we'll get to that in a second. The Revenant expansion is coming on the 12th of December, and Deathless calls on Capsuleers to equip for and join the ongoing war against the Drifters. Well, there you go. Very direct accusation that basically this is a war between the Deathless and the Drifters. Allegiance to this cause will come with great rewards, including fearsome new Deathless ships with powerful weapons. Intimidate your foes with Scarab breach pods that cause damage over time and disrupt enemy ships from the inside. What? Did I say? No. What? November. 12th of November. New mercenary dens will bring added resources, value, and conflict to nullsec. Major enhancements to corporation projects expand your ability to empower your groups and reach your goals. Skin design options grow exponentially with a secondary pattern slot, and targeted skin listings allow you to tailor a unique look from your group and share it with your members. Vanguard forces will increase their impact on New Eden from the ground in the biggest update to the game yet, as they descend to the surface on a new public event from the 28th of November to the 9th of December. There you go. So, once Drifter forces have been pushed back by the valiant Capsuleers at the Siege of Zarzak ended, a mysterious shrouded structure appeared in the system. Now the Deathless has sent out a rallying message for Capsuleers to bring him the key in the form of Adavum artifacts, which have been discovered in various relic sites across New Eden. A recent attack on a Thucker convoy transporting goods to Zarzak reveals a haul of Adavum, giving rise to speculation about its value, which has now become apparent. The Deathless promises handsome rewards for anyone who brings Adavum to Zarzak, although there is sure to be plenty of demand amongst other interested parties in New Eden. The Deathless has unveiled powerful new instruments of war, the Tholos Destroyer and Cenotaph Battlecruiser. Designed for bold, close-range combat, these ships will be the first to employ unique Scarab breacher pods for sustained damage over time. This new technology will allow Capsuleers to damage and disrupt enemy vehicles from within, adding powerful new stratagems to warfare in New Eden. These military Caldari hybrid ships are perfect for pilots who relish high-risk, high-reward gameplay, whether in solo operations or fleet warfare. Armed with covert ops cloaking devices and a bonus to stasis webfire resistance, they can slip into enemy ranks undetected and unleash devastating damage. Reward skilled Capsuleers who make the most of their hit-and-run capabilities. Designed for brawling, they are powerful weapons that provide a tactical edge in the ongoing war. Okay, so let's start there. New ships coming. The Tholos and the Cenotaph, which are going to be Mimitar Caldari hybrid pirate ships, that's the pirate crossover that we've never had, that we've been kind of waiting for years to get. It has a new weapon system, which appears to have a damage over time function to it. And it has a bonus to stasis web of fire resistance, making stasis web of fires less useful to them.
And let's not underestimate covert ops cloaking devices.
That's a big deal, man. Like,
yeah, it's huge.
I mean, the Sisters of Eve have covert ops cloaking device, but now we have a covert ops cloaking capable destroyer and battle cruiser, which could very well, like, normally things with things with covert ops cloaking devices end up having to sacrifice something combat wise in order to kind of get away with that. I think in this case it's because the breacher pods as a dot aren't really good at front loading their damage, right? So you can't just like decloak and blap them out of the sky. It's not like one of those ones where you're harassing somebody. Like, it's not like a Proteus decloaking in wormhole space or something like that. So it could very well be that the slow application of its damage is what allows it to be covert ops. But it also means that it will want to decloak, hit the enemy, and then get away. So that way its damage can continue to do its work while it's not exposed. Right?
Like, I'm reading it for the first time. I didn't really have time to read up to it. But reading on it, it sounds like it might be something that is happening when you're in Zarzek and you're outside of the safe zone. You start taking hull damage over time.
There are some people that...
like it could be something like that.
Yeah, and some people have suggested, especially since it says, at the very beginning, it says... Where is it? Disrupt enemy ships from the inside. So some people have thought that that means that it's going to like bypass shields. I don't know if I necessarily give that. I think that it's just the rationale that you're using breaching pods in order to like inject things into their ship to mess with stuff. I think that it would be it would be very oddly balanced if it bypassed shields.
It really depends on how they introduce it and what the exact mechanics are. I mean, if it's something where the way you described it, like you decloak, you hit them, you recloak after getting away, like I feel that would be a possibility, but then there should be a clear limit on how long they are active. So it's not like I just hit them and as long as they just don't dock in time, they're going to die. Like, I don't think it's going to be something like that, but it's just announced. We don't know the mechanics yet.
I'll be right back. You keep talking.
It certainly opens up the door to a whole completely new set of hit and run tactics or opportunities with asymmetrical warfare. And while Ash is away, good hello to everybody in the audience. You'll have to settle for me at the moment. If you got any questions, feel free to ask and type them in chat. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot we don't know yet. It seems that we don't know, Tweak. It could actually start overheating modules, that would be completely uh, problematic in a different way. But who knows?
I do like the idea of something that does damage to modules. It's actually a little known fact, but hull damage in Eve has a small chance of doing damage to modules. Like, that is a thing. But it's such a minor thing that basically no one ever notices it. It only really comes up when somebody who like doesn't have thermodynamics is confused as to why they have damaged modules.
Yeah, and at the same time, like, what happens? Like, if you start seeing it, do you just start applying paste, and does that negate it, or does it block the use of paste? Like, there's a lot of unknown, and it's going to be intriguing in what it's actually going to do. And at the same time, like, how is it going to balance out with the other weapon systems?
Right. So one thing that is interesting is that, like, so the destroyer is one thing, but the battle cruiser could theoretically decloak, shoot its load, micro jump drive, and then get away, which is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's so much that we don't know about this. Really, the amount of time. So what's interesting, what's weird about damage over time is like when you try to think about damage over time in Eve, almost all examples are basically just like it cycles and does damage, right? So in theory, like arguably every gun is a damage over time because it does damage every so many seconds. You know, gas clouds, there are some treacherous gas clouds out there that does damage every so many seconds. But in all of these cases, even the boundary of the deathless, as soon as you remove your exposure from the thing doing damage, it stops doing damage. The key here with a dot would, in theory, be that that damage will continue even after the source of that damage is removed, either because it's left or because you've killed it.
Mm-hmm.
And that has some very interesting implications to the game. Yeah. So yeah, I think, and it's a very interesting limited way of giving this weapon system, right? Unlike Edencom or Triglavian ships, it's not anywhere close to a full ship line. It is just destroyers and battle cruisers for now.
Yep. Yeah, and at the same time, like, I wonder on how it works with regarding to upscaling the numbers. Like, there's this point where they started to do the math with the Zappy Boys, the Edencom ships weapon systems, where it's like, okay, so we have this one person here and we have this many people shooting it, then that's going to be guaranteed to go over a certain threshold to start getting the kills. Like, how does that scale up with this new weapon system?
Right. Yeah. How does it work with everything else that's going on? How does it work with damage bonuses? How does it work with all kinds of different things? One of the things I have like thought about with the disruption, I wouldn't mind it if this also like limited remote repair assistance as well, kind of like the Lancer Dreads do. But as with all of these theories about what it might mean to disrupt things from the inside, I wouldn't read too much into it. I think if it did direct hull damage, or if it did remove remote repair or any of that kind of stuff, I want to believe that they would have mentioned it. You know, there's the biggest suggestion here is that it's just a dot, which is,
well, let's be fair, right? This is the announcement. Like, this is the moment where you start hyping people up, where you
right.
deliberately give enough information for people to get excited and start thinking about what it actually is without actually having to reveal too many details yet. This is just get people hyped up.
Yes.
And I would say so far, at least in my case, it's certainly working.
Yeah, exactly. I want these things like now. The design of them look pretty cool. Some people have been calling one kind of the horizontal tornado, and the other one seems to be a modified breacher. it does definitely look like somebody took at least the top bit of a tornado and slapped it onto the side of like a Kestrel, I would say. Although I guess maybe this wide one, the one that looks like a tornado, is the battle cruiser, and the one that looks like a breacher is the destroyer. Maybe.
Actually, like the circular parts look comparable to the SWIBBLE.
That's true, actually.
I'm more inclined to say like this has some strong resemblance to the SWIBBLE. While it's in I want to say mobility mode. Yeah, mobility.
I think you're right. Hold on, check it out. Let me get the angle right. Yeah. That's pretty good. Huh. Are these ships not going to have any armor? Hard to say. I mean, like, if it's Caldari Mimitar, then chances are it's going to be shield tanked, right?
Probably shield and speed. Which, with the bonus to weapon resistance, makes it really interesting considering that under normal circumstances, you just get a 60% speed reduction at best. Now, if you get a reduction to it, and even if it's, say, capped out at 20%, then instead of getting a top of 60, it's just going to be 48. So combine that with the micro warp drive, you start adding up speed considerably. And if you look at the Serpentis webs that could go up to 90%, then that 20% reduction is going to be even bigger impact. Like getting under their guns might just be a little bit easier, or trying to get out. Like it's certainly going to shape up the meta in faction warfare space and the insurgency area. I think that's a given.
Yeah. It is going to be interesting to see what their DPS value is. You know, like, because if they don't do enough damage total, like in faction warfare, it's got to be able to kill the rats effectively. If you can't do that, then you can't really run faction warfare. So the devil's going to be in the details for sure.
Yep. And at the same time, like that new weapon system, is that going to be comparable to like the bomb on the stealth bombers, where it's a single weapon system where you can have one of that is unique to that hull, or is it going to take up multiple weapon slots that they don't really have that many alternatives with either say missiles or this weapon system? Like I feel that it's probably going to be there's going to be room for one of those new weapon systems to avoid upscaling it too much with a limited.
Well, it also, I mean, like you only see a single missile in both pictures. So yeah, that lends credence to what you're saying.
It certainly lives up to Trust in the Rust, where it's about armor plating. Now we'll rely on speed. Speed is good.
Right.
You don't need armor if they can't hit you.
All right, next.
I like the unique apparel that it has, and it seems fitting with the current background that we know of the Deathless.
Yes, I think it looks pretty. I think that it does match a pretty good fit for the Deathless. I was suggesting something that has old school ECM, but I guess another like a covert ops combat ship has some pretty good potential. Next, they also announced Revenant also introduces mercenary dens, deployable structures that produce encrypted infomorphs by harnessing workforce. These infomorphs are highly sought after by the Deathless and can be exchanged for new and valuable rewards. Shortly after the launch of Revenant, mercenary dens will start generating activities called tactical operations, and engaging with or ignoring these activities will influence the production of encrypted infomorphs and impact the Skyhook's workforce output. Furthermore, mercenary dens are vulnerable and hostile pilots can potentially disrupt operations, further influencing workforce output and encrypted infomorph generation. These introduce new resources, activities, and potential for conflict in nullsec. This is... I legitimately don't fully know how to interpret this. So this suggests that it's a deployable structure. So players are going to deploy this, right? It would seem next to a skyhook, and that changes. Like, so if the skyhook is, let me take a step back. Right now, if the skyhook is on a lava planet, it produces magmatic gas, or if it's on an ice planet, it produces superionic ice. Both of these things can, in theory, be skyhook rated. The other stuff is uninteractable by players outside of the home group in any way. The plasma planet and gas planet provide power, where the oceanic planet and temperate planet provides workforce. So what they seem to be doing is, while lava and ice planets have their own special thing, they're now adding a special thing to workforce planets, which is that you can also deploy these mercenary dens next to them. Now, my first question is, who is going to be deploying these structures? Because it's not really clear. It sort of seems like it's designed for the way that it phrases it, it seems to suggest that the people who owned the skyhook may want this thing connected to it because they want encrypted infomorphs instead of workforce, right? That a person might have we don't need any more workforce, so let's just turn this skyhook into infomorph production, which then becomes another commodity or whatever,
Kind of
just
makes
like
sense
lava
because
and ice.
kind of makes sense because the workforce is only really needed to online upgrades. Like if you online what you want to online, having this option gives
I
the
thought
workforce
workforce were
value,
ongoing.
and it gives something to actually fight over. Like you could include that in the raider mechanics.
Right. I thought workforce is ongoing, right? Because you have to route it between systems. It's the gas and the ice that is only for onlining, unless it's Sinos and Capitals construction, right? Am I wrong?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I'd have to look into it. Like there's
I
a
think
reason why I'm not running for nullsec.
that's fair. So that goes back to this statement, or if we go to the Hobo leaks, and we can see encrypted infomorph. An infomorph, a digitized human consciousness stored in stasis while it uploads to a new body. This infomorph has been encrypted by the Upload Consortium to prevent it from being reinstated in a new body by a third-party means to ensure the individual is encoded, remains faithful to the work contract that they signed. So this appears to be the reward for, or the encrypted infomorph is the output from this new structure, and it is listed as a commodity.
Hey, maybe it works the same as the old siphoning unit on POSes.
Yeah, but the siphoning unit on POSes doesn't create a new resource. So I guess the weird scenarios is, on the one hand, you're going to have owners that might or might not want this thing on there and then run the sites that are available for it. I don't see somebody coming in and dropping this as a disruption effort, because are they going to run the tactical operations site once they've dropped it? I don't think that makes any sense. This feels like something that the owners would do. But at the same time, the idea, it feels like the opposite of what an owner would do, right? Like the rewards, the way the mechanics of it work seems like it should be something that the owners of the system would want to do. But the aesthetics of the feature seems like something that a raider or an invader would do.
Well, we don't know what comes next. Like, this is the first time we see it. We don't know what's going to happen further down the line. And it could just be giving people an alternative choice. Like, look, this is what you can do. Like, yes, you can use them as workforce, or you've got to use them for this alternative way. So how do you want to split it out? How do you want to delegate this specific resource?
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. It could very well be that like this is a tech that the Deathless is providing to people in order to hack their own skyhooks for something that's useful to him. Interesting. All
I
right.
mean, the
Well,
Fulcrum has plenty of well-stocked empty clones. All they need are infomorphs.
that's true. And we're collecting more with those clone profiles or the turn-ins. All right, achieve more with core projects. The Revenant expansion brings more powerful new ways to strengthen and streamline corporation efforts, giving capsulators even greater opportunities to contribute. Organization leaders in New Eden will gain more control and flexibility over their corporation projects, enabling them to tailor goals and tasks for maximum efficiency, while also enhancing the experience for current or potential members. Expanded project parameters add flexibility, allowing creators to set comprehensive, complex, and diverse goals. This enables leaders to create one project with multiple contribution options, such as mining in multiple locations or targeting various ship types and ship groups. Select project types will support expanded parameters on launch day, and more will be added later. This is incredibly useful because one of the problems with the organizational reward things is that it's so specific. You can just do the one in any given one. So if you want to be able to collect all the different ore, like we use opportunities to do the buyback for the ore from the moons that we mine. But that means that we have to maintain like 12 plus different projects, right? One for each of the mineral, one for each of the ore, and the compressed or like not the compressed, but like the dense. You know, you have to get Veldspar, dense Veldspar, and condense and compress. Or yeah, what is the big one? Dense. Jeez, why am I brain farting? The best is
You didn't have
Veldspar.
your second cup of coffee yet.
That's true.
I probably denied it.
What are you? What you should tell me? Hold on.
Oh, I can't really tell you. I mean, my organization isn't big enough to defend the moon mining
Concentrated.
structures.
It is
So,
concentrated. Well, no, this is Veldspar.
oh, Veldspar. No, you've got the biggest one is dense. The ones where you get 10% more yield. That's dense Veldspar.
Yep. Concentrated is 420. Dense is 440. I'm dumb. Well done. So yeah, it does feel like
longer, so it makes sense if I remember it a bit better.
Yeah. I kept on thinking of compressed, but that's not.
That's a different
That's
state
a whole
of
nother
being.
yeah, that's a whole nother kettle of fish. Okay, so let's see. Where were we? Do you use corp opportunities? Do you have anything going on like that in your organization at all? I don't remember.
Well, I recently created my own organization, and I haven't really had the time to start properly recruiting yet. If people are wondering why did you start to create your own thing, well, for one thing, I was part of the Artucker Research Consortium, but with my interest in becoming a mercenary for the Alliance tournament and running for the CSM on a regular basis, I wanted to avoid any complications and accusations of favoritism towards our community. So I decided it was a good moment to, you know what, I'm just going to clearly make a distinction. I'm going to leave the actual alliance. I'm going to create my own thing. I'm still part of the community. I help out where I can. But now that there's a bit of a difference where nobody can really accuse ARC or the ARC community of being favored by CCP, or not being neutral or open to everybody else because of what my action would be as a mercenary in the AT, or if I would get elected to the CSM, where people would say like, oh no, but Dutch is part of leadership of ARC, therefore they have a back door. That's not how I work, but I just want to avoid any of those accusations that might harm our community. And yeah, with running for the CSM and the AT at the same time, like I just didn't really have the time to start recruiting and work with the corporate goals. But I do plan to extend in the future, and then I will definitely make use of corporate goals.
We've been using them quite a bit. They're really useful. The
They're
new ship
very
insurance, yes. The new ship insurance project type will offer a streamlined way to automate ship replacement programs, providing a seamless and guaranteed compensation system based on the loss value. This project type will be added in an update shortly following the expansion launch and will support expanded project parameters. I thought the ship insurance project was already in the game. What is this? What is this representing?
No, I think right now that you have to be very specific, and that what they would do now, like what they say, is way too automated.
Got it. Right. Huh. Hold on.
So I would say it's a further iteration on it.
Yeah, that's what it seems. Show corporation projects. Create new corporation project. Drop this off. Ship loss. So I can put in the capsuleer organization, the ship type, or the solar system. And, oh, okay. So right now I can only reward a certain amount. So I can be like, oh yeah, if you lose a guardian, here's your payout. In the new version, it seems like the payout will be able to be tied to the value of the ship being lost. So that's pretty cool.
Good addition.
And project deadlines will help corporation leaders prioritize goal and communicate the urgency and importance of specific projects, helping members prioritize their efforts. New project participation limits also enable more equitable involvement across members. So you can make it so that, oh, this project is due by this point, and also you can say, okay, no one person can contribute more than this amount, which I think is probably pretty cool. Skin your corp. This has some people excited. Revenant enhances organizational cohesion with targeted skin listings in the Paragon Hub, enhancing your identity, unity, and sense of belonging. The addition of secondary pattern slot also allows groups to create a distinctive look. Brand managers can list custom skins exclusive to their corporate alliance, promoting distinctive visual identity on the battlefield. When targeted listings is posted by a brand manager, there's no minimum Plex or ISK price, and no skinner service fees or Paragon Hub listing costs is applied. Only a listing fee in Evermarks based on the skins tiers collected from the buyer. All capsuleers will have easy access to any listings targeted directly at them in the trade hub or in the hub that are also target to skin listing directly to other capsuleers. This allows skins to be shared exclusively within a trusted circles and sold to a wider customer base, fostering both a sense of camaraderie and a thriving marketplace. So
that's a really big one and a really great one. And the first question that comes to mind to me is, what happens if a person uses those skins and they leave the corporation? Do they still have access to it? Or is it actually going to be corporate exclusive? Because that would be really cool.
Well, I'm going to kind of bring this down a little bit, maybe. So I'm reading this. First of all, there's too much money involved in Skinner to be optimistic about. Like we got to be very practical about our analysis of what this text says, if that makes sense. Like, we're not going to read into it anything more than it says. But so, like, if you think about it, like, all this is suggesting is that you can put up a skin that you've already sequenced up for sale on the Paragon Hub, put it up for only your alliance or corporation to get, and they can put it up for no price if they want to. However, there is a listing fee which is paid by the buyer, which doesn't make it a listing fee, for the record. But that's in Evermarks. So I've heard a lot of people walk away from this being like, oh, cool, we're going to be able to get skins with Evermarks. But I want to point out that this Skinner item, or this skin that's sequenced, has already been sequenced, which means someone has already paid Plex to make this skin. It's just the act of transferring that created skin to the new person that makes it that doesn't cost anything or only costs Evermarks. So it's not like I can make a skin and then everybody in my alliance can use that skin as long as they pay Evermarks. It's more like I can mass produce a skin and then sell it to my corporation for a certain, however much I want, and Paragon Hub doesn't take a cut, but there's a certain amount of Evermarks that are taken. Now, it's worth noting that these Evermarks are not part of the sale, right? The person who's putting up the skin does not get the Evermarks. There is no way to transfer Evermarks from one player to another. This just allows you to basically spend Evermarks in order to get a ship or a skin that has been listed for your corporation or alliance. So I don't think that this is going to be the thing that makes everybody really happy, only because like the player base has this weird sense that skins shouldn't be for Plex. But that's always been the case, right? I argue that, like, if you look at skin, like the Nest store, besides skins that drop, which they still will, and Skinner components drop, like the idea that skins are going to be regularly available, that we're going to be able to create skins to distribute to our own people that doesn't cost Plex, I think is a fool's errand. That just isn't how the economics of this is going to play out.
Oh, I agree. And at the same time, like the one thing that this one does is that it actually opens up the option that if somebody says like, "Hey, I want you to create a really cool skin for me," um, that they can actually list that directly to that person. Like, "Hey, this is what you requested," instead of it has to go up for public and whoever grabs it first, that's the lucky owner. And
Right.
this way, you could actually use skins created as a reward. Where if you're higher up, you could, for instance, use corporate projects to gather resources, get them for ISK, buy Plex, create a skin, and reward a specific person with a specific skin.
But this
Like
doesn't let
you
you
get
put it up to a
with
specific
economy,
person.
sorry?
This doesn't let you put it up to a specific person. You'd have to put it up to the corporation or alliance.
I believe I just read a part that it could be uh, exclusive. Yeah, okay. Yeah, exclusive to the corporate alliance, but I thought I read
And also
somewhere
able
that-
to target a skin listing directly to other capsuleers.
Yeah,
All
there you
capsuleers will have easy access to listing targeted directly at them in the hub and are also able to target skin listings directly to other capsuleers. That might be close to what you're talking about.
like it gives you the option. And if people's like, "Hey, look, I really we have this really cool thing," and people are just starting out or they're still relatively new in the game, or they don't really have access to that much Plex, this is a great alternative where you have people that are more wealthy that could get the skins created for and hand them out as a reward or a thank you or something else. And it creates, with the direct listing, it actually creates the option for requested skin creations for the individuals and people that create them, and therefore get the like, I'll create this for you, and then they can barter out what the price is going to be and do it that way. So it's certainly a good enhancement of the current Skinner.
Right. It is definitely an improvement over the current Skinner system. I just wanted to make sure that like we rein in our expectations about what's going to come with this, right? Because like this isn't going to be a way for suddenly everybody to be able to get free skins for their
Oh
corp.
no. Like
Yeah.
based on what's written there, you can. It makes a clear distinction that it's not about the creation of the Skinner. Like that one, still the way it is right now, you have to pay ISK to create it. It's more about what's happened after you created it.
Yeah. And again, to everyone's point, skins always took Plex. So the idea that these would take Plex now, they're large. They are largely comparable in cost to old school skins, but now you can fully customize them. Like, there are a lot of things that you can argue about Skinner, but the cost of Skinner, at least for now, from everything I've seen, seems to be relatively comparable compared to the prices that were set by skins, given the fact that you can totally customize them. That said, I think that in the past they were Aurum. Thanks. There are definitely some weirdness. Like, if you provide all of the pieces from drops, you still have to pay Plex, even though you're contributing all the pieces. There's these weird like double, triple hits of Plex, and the cost of Plex to like speed it up. There is definitely some weirdness there for sure. But like, this idea that Skinner should be something that doesn't cost Plex, I think is pretty insane. Now, that said, customization has never been more exciting or plentiful, as Revenant will introduce secondary nested patterns to the skin design process. Designers can now apply a second pattern to their skins, creating complex layered designs for a unique and personalized look. A multitude of new patterns ranging from bold geometric designs to more intricate and expressive visuals will inspire capsuleers to push the limit of their design, offering new ways to stand out in New Eden. For capsuleers seeking spontaneous creativity or quick inspiration, a new randomized button will allow you to instantly generate new designs by cycling through combinations of patterns and colors. Whether you're refining your corp's signature look or experimenting with a personal style, the randomize function offers endless possibilities at the click of the button. If you are in a corp and your corp CEO makes a uniform by using the randomize function, find a new corp.
Or not.
That's what.
I mean, it might just be something that it combines things that you never thought of, but work really, really well.
Yeah, but chances are, no. One of the this is such a weird picture that they show. Oh no, so you have the green dots along the spine, as well as the yellow stripes. Right? That's kind of what's going on here.
Mm-hmm.
No offense, but what a terrible picture to show off the fact that you're using two patterns.
Yeah, but at the same time, like there is a very clear distinction where you could see things which, like, yeah, no, this is not a single pattern.
Yes, it's true.
And is it a great way to make it really ugly to basically trigger people to go, I can do better than that?
I can do better than that. Yeah, that's true. I'm just saying, like, that the second pattern is so non-obvious. It'd be nice if they had like done one that didn't like get it. Colorblind people would have a very difficult time seeing that there is two colors here.
Depending on the type of color blindness they have, but yeah.
Fair. All right. Partner with Paragon. Designers looking to delve deeper and become skindustrialists can take advantage of a new skill, Executive Paragon Partnership. This lowers fees associated with Paragon Hub transactions, increasing the profit margin and expanding the creative economy around Skinner customizations. Partner with Paragon to carve out a name for top designer New Eden, shape the visual identity of your corporation or alliance, and profit from your new unique creations. That's the same, like, so basically just another skill of the same level, just new levels. You do not see two patterns? Hold on. Yeah, you can right now you can only use one pattern on the Skinner. Hold on.
After the expansion, you can use two.
Pull out my pen real quick. Yes, this is a picture. This is from the
Deathflow.
All right. Now then, save. Uh-oh, where did that go? Sort, date, ascending? Yes, no, maybe? I apparently have a lot of screenshots in my screenshot folder. There it is. So you can see the second pattern there. I have it circled. All right, that's it. That was definitely worth the time that it took to do that. All right. Customization has never been more exciting or plentiful as Revenant will endure. Okay, your ship's elevated. With the Revenant expansion, ships take center stage as the updated ship information window offers more dynamic and immersive way to view your ship's details. Every aspect of your ship will be elevated from stats and capabilities to visual presence, helping you make more informed decisions by offering an enriched understanding of its role and potential. The new interface also allows you to browse and apply ship skins directly, adds new modes, and much more. And this is the screenshot that we have of it. This is the description of the Omen, ship characteristics, bonuses, and I'm assuming that like these other tabs are like this is the information tab, then there's like the fitting tab, the skills tab, industry tab, skin tab. And this allows you to see the ship in the ship tree, and this allows you to hunt for it on the market. This, I mean, on the one hand, it looks like a clean layout. On the other hand, I'm sure that the complaints have already started on Reddit about how much wasted space there is. What do you think about this?
Well, it looks like it's a new take on the information screen, and instead of it just having different tabs and opening new windows, if you want to preview like the skins, it seems more compact and more piecemeal. Where depending on what you're looking for, like this is this bit of relevant information.
Right. So we can see here that like here's the original, here's the current show info window. You can see that it has in the information area, it has the characteristics, the bonuses, and then the skill book, the link to go. Oh, that's to simulate the ship. View market details, show in ship tree are the buttons down here, and then description, attributes, fitting, requirements, mastery, variation, industry, and skins. So if we go back to the page, we can see it's basically identical. We can see here we have the bonuses with above it the ship characteristics and the description, which is the description is actually in a separate page in this one. So I assume this would be information, attributes, fitting, requirements, mastery, industry, and skins. Although that means that there is no variations. There's a tab missing. Because either mastery or variations aren't there. Odd. I don't know. Seems fairly minor. It's very similar to what they did to like when you're docked and you can see what ships you have.
Mm-hmm.
Which, did they ever make that so you can see the fits of ships that you're not in at the moment? Because I can't remember. They said that they're like going to turn that on. I'm not sure if they ever did.
Don't think they have just yet. But I do think it's on. It's coming soon.
I don't get how people make is from skins. Maybe it's just because my skills suck, but it costs like 110 plex to make a skin worth like 50 mil at most. I know some people that have made some money off of the Skinner system. Most of the time what they'll do is they'll like publish, or they'll like produce like 5 or 6 skins or whatever, and then they will sell all but one of them and try to just recoup their losses, so or the cost, so that way they basically get their one for free.
It just takes some keeping in mind that when you list your skin, and if you list it for ISK, that you take the tax amount into account. Like if
Right.
you make a calculation and you say, hey, look, if I translate it all back to ISK, this skin would cost me, and I'm just picking a random number, like it would have cost me 400 million ISK to create with the Plex conversion. And I'm going to want to make a little bit of a profit. So let's say I'm going to sell it for 450 million ISK. You first get the tax deduction, which I think is currently 20%. So that from the 450, you lose 20%. So that's 90 million. And then all of a sudden, you're getting 360 million back for something that cost you 400.
Right. Yeah. You gotta make sure to account. This is true about all the industry, though. It's really easy if you don't account for something to think that you're making a really good deal, and then you're not. So yeah, it was pointed out that it does have the V down here, which shows the mastery level, but that's not the same thing. If you look right now, I also can see my mastery level on the main page, but there is a separate tab for mastery to tell me where that mastery is coming from and what else I need to train in order to get a higher mastery. That's the page that I'm not sure whether or not it's that or the variations tab. Those are the, like, there's a spot there with an image.
I feel like based on what we can see from the picture, it might just be the variation one, where it's just more focused on the ship itself and not any faction or Tech 2 variation of the same hull.
The logo looks like almost like DNA. So I don't know, man. Yeah, it could very well be that they're putting the mastery system in somewhere else. Yeah.
Like
Maybe
looking
this
at it,
button opens up project
looking at
discovery.
it, I agree that the bottom one is for skins, the one above it is industry, the one above that I'm not entirely sure. It could be variations, like just tell you what other variants there are of that hull.
Right.
Then there's the skill part. The next one I want to say fitting, and that's probably going to be things like low number amount of low, medium, and high slots,
Mm-hmm.
armor hit points, shield hit points, hull hit points, stuff like that. And the one above that, that's a big mystery for me.
Attributes. Probably attributes. Which I wonder why, I've wondered this for a long time. Why is attributes and fitting two different tabs in the first place? I feel like that could be... Admittedly, the attributes tab is already pretty overwhelming, but theoretically speaking, you could present all that information in one
Yeah,
block.
like I think it's more like if people are relatively new and they're trying to decide like what ship will be next and they don't have a guideline or other players giving them advice like, hey, try to go for this or try to go for that if you want to go down this line, where they just have the characteristics where they could say, oh, this is meant for assault, this is for support, and
Right.
then look at the fittings more like, okay, what is it for? That's its intended use based on its design, and then you go into the details of like slot layout, armor hit points, shield hit points, to ease yourself into how you want to outfit your ship. But that's an assumption on my side.
It does drive me kind of crazy that they have these really cool logos that are icons that kind of indicate what's going on. It's a medium ship, it's an attack ship, etc., etc. But like, so
The
the
index is
idea,
missing.
well, the idea, first of all, it's not like, I have never met, sorry, I think I might have met one person that has noticed these icons and learned anything from them before they met me, right? Like most of the time I get asked questions that are answerable by these icons. No one notices the icons. And then on top of that, it says, let's see, if we go to the traits page and hover over this, it says attack. Hulls with good damage and mobility recommended for attrition, hit and run, and pursue tactics. So like the idea that an attack ship is different than a combat ship, and what makes those two different is something that is not really laid out for anyone in anywhere. And yet that is how CCP kind of thinks about these ships. So one of the things I would really like it is if it just said down here, instead of saying cruiser, it said attack cruiser, right? In the same way that we have force recon and the other recon, combat recon, I think it is.
I think
You
so.
know,
Yeah.
and blockade runners versus DSTs, like we can identify an attack frigate, a combat destroyer, whatever. Like these are nomenclature that we should be getting people familiar with, I think.
True. But at the same time, like there is no way to deal with the ingenuity of the Eve player base. I mean, we've seen ships work with a shield tank, even though they're clearly meant to be armor tanked.
That's true.
And
But
ships that were like designed or set up to do something really well, and then they can be used for a completely different one. So
I mean,
feel
yes,
like
and can be.
characteristics are more like CCP's way of here, have some guidelines to roughly point you in a direction, but feel free to do something completely different.
Yeah, but so the thing about that though is there is a lot of actual value in those distinctions, because Jeff is also asking, is this a distinction without a difference? It's actually not. So attack ships are faster and less tanky. They tend to not have tank bonuses. They tend to have faster stats, etc. So in this case, we have the Omen, which is the attack, and we have the nope. My brain's frying. Today is not good with words, so let's just not even pretend and just pull it up.
I want to say the Augurer, but that's the logistic ship.
Yeah. Mauler.
Mauler, yeah.
So, like, no one is going to be able to rightly tell me that the Mauler has a worse tank than the Omen. You can see that the Omen has a damage bonus and an activation cost bonus, whereas the Mauler has a damage bonus and a tank bonus. The same is true between the Caracal, which is the attacker, and the MOA with the combat. The combat ships almost always have some sort of tank bonus to them. So it's like the Vexer would be the combat one, with the VNI, of course, having the better rep bonus, but whatever. Mm-hmm. But you see what I'm saying? Like, these things do have value. It's the same as like compact versus restrained and stuff. Like I wish this was more easier for people to figure out without having to watch my videos. I like people watching my videos. Please watch my videos, like, comment, subscribe, yada, yada, yada. But like, there's a certain amount that my tutorials exist because they have to in a world in which they shouldn't have to,
Well, at the same time, I mean, Eve is now approaching 22. Yeah, it's now over 21 years old. So things expand over time, and there's just so much that if you're not careful, it's really easy to be overwhelmed, and then it helps to basically be eased into it, where you just say like, look, we're going to start with this, and then once you got a grasp on that, we can slowly expand upon it into direction that you care about and you want to go further into the game.
Right. And that's true. And I think that's very much should be like the goal of the MPE, is to kind of, or like really the goal of the UI altogether, I think, should be to help people like get to where they want to be in their understanding of things in the game.
And I think that's one of the biggest hurdles that people that start playing Eve will have, like to get into contact with that group of people, because it's so like it's a social game. If you make that connection, the friendship machine, the games become so much more enjoyable. But you have to get there, and that's the hard part for CCP, because if they start to promote one thing over the other, they can quickly be accused of favoritism, or why would you promote one group or the other, or one activity over the other?
Right.
And that's an incredibly difficult tightrope to walk across. So I feel that CCP is doing what they can without really giving any openings for these kind of accusations. But at the same time, that does mean that what they can provide is going to be limited and not that obvious.
Right. I think one of my biggest concerns is that like things like this and the ship viewer in stations that they came with the last expansion, my concern is if this represents a shift in CCP's attempt to do new player experience stuff, right? Like, because they kind of left. There are actually quite a few people that are very excited about the new player experience that they did have and want to know what's next, right?
Mhm.
Air got raided. There's mysterious stuff. There's this whole mystery. And I'm concerned that CCP has shifted their idea for how they're going to support things and be like, oh, well, if only our UI was slick enough. Because there's no difference in what information is presented here. This is no more informative than it was before. It's just quote unquote slicker, right?
True, but that's important too. I mean,
It is.
that's the same. Like if you look at how, and yes, I know my age will be showing, but if you look at the early iterations of Windows, where you still needed DOS commands to move around, and you look at what we have now, it's slicker, it's more intuitive, and for survival of a game, that's also important. Like it has to keep up with certain developments to avoid people just zoning out or quitting before even actually giving it a try. Because like this interface, this is not what I'm used to. This feels
That's fair.
dated. You lost me. Bye bye.
That said, though, what do you think is the bigger problem? How slick it looks or this attributes page? Like, I remember when I was a new player, I looked at this attribute page. I was like, oh, let's find out stuff about it. And my mind was blown. Like, I don't know what any of this means. What is an inertia modifier? And is times 4.3 good or bad? Right? Like, what does it mean for there to be a drone bandwidth? And what's the difference between drone bandwidth and drone capacity? Now, granted, you can hover over things now and get that information, which is way better than it was when I first started. But like, I feel like this is significantly more overwhelming than the window itself is boring.
Could be. I mean, it's the same with certain UI changes over time. Like initially, the NPCs had a completely different way to show what they were. Like were they frigates, were they cruisers, were they battleships? That changed over time. You have to adjust to it. And like I'm not sure. Like compared to now the different tabs, the new one, it might just be more intuitive.
Yeah. Well,
But at the
yeah.
same time, I mean, I've been playing it since 2003. So in certain things, I'm really set in my ways where I already learned a lot, and I don't have to learn it from the get go. So that's the thing where it's different for me. But I'm sure that CCP has done their research and asked like feedback with test groups or anything else. Like, hey, what works better? Like, what do they feel more happy with? Like,
I'm sure
what
they
is
A/B tested the shit out of this for sure. Yeah, I agree. Sorry, I didn't mean to actually cut you off.
okay.
All right. So next, though, reach your goals with Evermarks. For those who find certain daily goals out of reach or outside of your playstyle, the ability to pay Evermarks to complete air daily goals will be added shortly following the expansion launch. This allows Capsuleers to focus on the activities that they enjoy the most while still progressing and achieving their goals. It's an effective way to maximize freedom and choice, offering the ability to stockpile Evermarks and use them strategically. What the is going on? Like, this is so weird to me. You have the air daily goals, right? They came out with the air. Well, first they came out with the air goals, or the goals, and they're all based on the abyss. People bitched about that. So then they expanded the air goals to be a bunch of other things, but they also removed the daily rewards. So a lot of people were mad about that. And then there was only 4 daily goals. So there were a lot of times where there would be something like just nothing for you to be able to do. So then they doubled the number of daily goals and made it so that there could be duplicates. So basically, you could complete your daily goals for the month just by checking every day and doing a run of 1 ammo manufacturing
Mm-hmm.
any day that there happens to be 2 manufacturing things up and basically be Gucci, right? So like now you can just pay Evermarks to complete your air daily goals, but also Evermarks are one of the rewards from air daily goals. Like if you complete 3 days worth of daily goals, you get Evermarks. Is that changing? Can I pay 100 Evermarks and get 3,000 Evermarks? I'm so
I'm not
confused
sure.
by
Like,
what.
I feel that they did keep that in mind, and at the same time, like if you look at a lot of the daily goals, they could be like what you often see is kill 25 non-player ships or vessels. You'll see build something and earn LP.
Yes,
And I feel that with giving the option to use Evermarks to complete something, it gives more options to the wormhole players. Because not every wormhole player is going to have access to either a faction war or an industry related reward.
right.
And if it's just a kill, and if it's just one, you're going to be there like, I want to do it, but I only have this one, and I need 2 to get the reward. Can I please have an option instead of having to go outside of wormhole space and do something other task and then get back again? Um, so
Yeah,
I feel like it's probably something that could help with the wormhole communities. And at the same time, I feel that this is not going to be something to really you spend a bit of the Evermarks, but you'll get more in return. Like I feel this would be a drain on Evermarks. Like if you want to do it this way, you can, but you
yeah.
will run out of Evermarks at one point.
I mean, that's probable. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's fair. I cannot help but feel like this smacks of just like giving up, right? Like, well, we can't make the air daily goals make any sense. So now we're just going to give you an option to pay it off with the exact resource that we give you for doing them. You know what I mean? Like it's very much like the Skyhook changes where it's like, you know what? Never mind. You know, we're going to now trivialize.
Where it flipped from one end to the complete opposite.
Yeah.
Where initially I'm like, yeah, no, I understand this. This does favor the attacker way too much, but like if they would have just said like, okay, there's going to be a 1 hour window every day with a deviation, that would have been okay. If they said we're going to split it 50-50, that would have been okay. But now have it 50-50, and once every 3 days you'll have a 1 hour window.
Mm-hmm.
Oof.
It's so bizarre, but yeah, it just feels like in that case and in this case, they had plans. The plans didn't really work out, so now they're left with these pieces, and they're just like, eh.
I have a strong suspicion. I strongly believe that this is most likely related to the wormhole community because the initial response had abyssals. Not everybody is in a position that they could run the abyssals. So if you had people that just had to run like 50 tier 1 or 2 abyssals to get where they needed to be, that wasn't really well balanced throughout the player community. So they also
Right.
now removed the abyssals. They included the faction warfare option in there, and that basically left the wormhole community a bit high and dry. So I feel with this one, with the caveat that if you want to do it with air only, you'll not be able to sustain it with just the dailies. It's a good way to quit leaving the wormholers to be on the short end of the stick and be completely forgotten.
Droneland's denizens also had a lot of problems with air daily goals for a long time.
Yep.
Because there's no LP to get.
Mm-hmm.
there used to be much more difficult scanning requirements, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
But yeah, I don't know. I'm definitely going to want to see more details about this, but it just
I agree, but at the
I
same
feel like
time,
Evermarks were promised to be a thing, and then we got logos, and then they haven't done anything with it anymore, and now they're just dropping 2 new Evermark syncs. And it's like, what about the other stuff that Evermarks are supposed to be used for? You know, what about heraldry? What happened to that? Why are we syncing out our Evermarks? Easier access to SP is huge for retaining new players. Yeah, but do new players have a bunch of Evermarks laying around for them to be able to get the SP with? I do like the idea of like turning Evermarks into SP, I suppose. Vanguard's new event and update. From 28th of November to the 9th of November, the Vanguard descends planet-side, impacting the ongoing war in New Eden on a grander scale in Vanguard's biggest update yet. More details will be revealed soon. In the meantime, show your support by wish-listing Vanguard on Steam and join the Discord to become the founder and shape the game's development. So, yeah, we're getting new Vanguard stuff. We can see new suits. Recently in Vanguard, on the Discord, they've been showing off new, basically variant maps. So like a night version.
Could it be that they introduced grenades? That person on the right looks like he might be throwing a grenade.
Look, I'm unwilling to get my hope up. Like, I want, like, my kingdom for grenades, man. Like, you're right.
Like, if I'm looking at it, it might be a grenade, or at least something that's being thrown. And the person at the center seems to be holding a sidearm. So that could be interesting too.
Yeah. There's a lot of interesting stuff in this picture now that you mention it. But yeah, I do know that they have shown 2 different maps, which are variant maps of the previous maps. There has been an increasing talk about Vanguard and its relationship to skyhooks, starting with the previous Solstice event. And it seems like they're only doubling down on that now. So I think that it's worth paying attention to this Vanguard change, along with these new deathless mercenary dens, right? Because this likely could be related to it. And they're talking about activities, tactical operations, and other activities that might influence the system. This is one of the ways that it could very well play in to Vanguard. And we're not 100% sure yet. So, but I've been playing a lot of, I've played Vanguard in the previous ones so far. I'm interested in the new one. I'm going to be there on the 28th of November. You've had problems in the past zoning in.
Yeah. I'm going to keep trying, but I'll have to accept that for Vanguard, my computer is too dated. So yeah, it's one of those. I think I need to start considering saving up to replace my computer and get a new one.
It might be time. Punchinello, thank you so much for the $10. That's very awesome of you. 07. You brought your keys. That's good. If anybody can turn in an Adavim or the other one and let me know what the rewards are, we can look at that. All right. In celebration of the Revenant release, Capsuleers who log in daily for the first 2 weeks will earn a variety of rewards, including a total of 10,000 Evermarks, Skinner design elements, boosters, skill points, and more. Both Alpha and Omega clones will benefit from these rewards, with Omegas getting both. Stay tuned for more information coming soon, including deeper dives in the Revenant expansion coming later this month, as well as the director's stream on the 8th of November. So basically what I expect now is every week from now until the expansion, we will likely get a dev blog that focuses on one of these things, right? So we'll get a dev blog about the new ships that are coming. We'll get a dev blog about the Skinner updates. We'll get a dev blog about the Enhanced Corp projects. You know, each one is going to be once a week. That's pretty much been the pattern that they've been doing. And there is a reasonable chance that they will be giving out 7 days of Omega for free when this expansion comes out, if the previous few expansions are any given indicator. But that is,
if they're timing it correctly, they could time it close to like the period of the CSM voting period and the AT period. or whatever comes in the event, like it lines up. I don't think it's probably going to be directly during the CSM voting period, because that would open up the window for
Yeah, that'd be bad.
farming it severely by just multi-boxing or creating a lot of accounts to cast the votes.
Doesn't it require like multiple months of Omega before, though?
Sorry?
Doesn't it require like a month or two of Omega before you can vote?
No, I think I
No,
believe that's only
the
for
voting period is going to be
weekend.
totally over. The voting period is going to be from the 17th to the 24th. This is way faster. Heck, we are 4 days away from the campaign period being over, and we're a week away from voting.
Yep.
Which I think is a pretty good segue to
so just to get to regard to the votes.
Oh yeah.
If there are any wormholers here, please, 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 please reach out to your candidates and get them to at least agree on who will be the second person on the wormholers ballot. That way you'll have the best chance to at least get one of your representatives far out for the race for CSM. There's been a change that started last year, where the first 10 are still elected the normal way, and then CCP can elect 2 candidates from those ranked 11 to 20th. So if you make sure that at least one of the wormhole candidates at least makes it to the top 20, even if not elected, and there's going to be a focus on wormholes, CCP could still elect that candidate. For everybody else, if you want to vote, put the person you want to see on the CSM the most at your number 1 spot, fill out all 10 slots. That means that however you want to vote, it will last the longest and have the biggest impact. And if you don't know who to vote for, look at the interviews, look at the posts. If you are short on time, check the CCP interviews, because they're only 10 minutes with every candidate, and fill out your ballot. And even if it's something where you say, I think there's too many of this type or that type, you can even just fill the ballot out like, this is the one I want to see most, put them on one, and then a simple requirement, as long as it's not one of those, just fill out your entire ballot. If you put me on it, much appreciated. If not, perfectly fine. It's up to you to vote how you want to see yourself represented on the CSM.
So I will be talking more, especially next week, about which candidates I endorse, and probably will be putting out my own slate in lieu of not doing CSM interviews this year. However, this leads me to my secret reason why I've brought us all here today, and more importantly, brought Dutch Gunner here today, which is that Dutch Gunner is running for CSM 19. We were going to have an interview today, but and I guess, you know, in a way we are, but there's so much going on today. I wanted to give Dutch Gunner an opportunity to just kind of come on and talk about the news as it's happening, because I think that that was a much better way of kind of showing Dutch Gunner's ability to comprehend things literally as they're breaking and give decent feedback, communicating his own assumptions about what's going on, correcting information, and coming up with some very insightful thoughts about this, given the fact that, like, none of us knew anything about this yesterday. So I do really appreciate you coming on and hanging out with us today, but I do want to talk about your candidacy in particular, because you are probably the candidate that my viewers are most keeping an eye on. You've run for CSM many times before. You've gotten very close.
Mm-hmm.
You represent the lore, but also, I want to say, like, you don't necessarily, like, to call you the lore candidate, I feel is disingenuous, because it's not like you represent the lore. You represent people who care about the universe, that have integrated themselves into the universe, right?
Yep.
RP in EVE Online isn't like forsooth or like some weird side story. Sometimes it is, but a lot of the time RP is just having an actual understanding of what is going on in the universe at large. You know, as you mentioned earlier with the news, you know, the news isn't necessarily in everybody's face all the time. It's there for us to discover or just ignore outright if they want to. But as I think my entire YouTube channel demonstrates, regardless of whether or not you are like one of those people that follows every single New Eden news as they come out, the lore and the universe itself provides a lot of texture and value for the community. So I guess one of my questions for you, Dutch, would be, what value would you say having a lore focused candidate would have for people that maybe don't even necessarily care about the lore as much? Why should they still care about you?
Okay, well, the really important part to keep in mind is that a game without a properly fleshed out setting quickly loses focus, and you'll run the risk of it becoming a power creep with just whatever comes next. That's what everybody wants. There isn't really a play, counterplay, and a decision instead of a guaranteed progression. And it's a way to tie things together. Instead of saying like, yeah, you can't do that because mechanics just do this. Like, there's a way to say like, okay, if you do this, you can do it, but these are the repercussions. And it makes the setting and the game become more alive. Like what happened with the convoy, players can interact with it, and there's a backstory about it where you'll see different parts of the setting react to it. For instance, the Thuckers going, well, yeah, they're part of our clan, but we're not happy with it. Even a little something as the reporter in Zarzak making a clear mention, like, I'm not sure I'll be able to make another report considering how people are looking at me. Like, that could be something where people say, hey, I want to do something with it. The reason, like, you could have a really cool backstory with the current Blood Raider event on why it's happening, what it's all about. It's little tie-ins and things that can get people excited to do something new or link up with other players and have a shot at things. It's not there to just, you have to do this, you have to follow this line. CCP has clearly showed that they're perfectly happy to just stop at one point where they say, look, this is a good stopping point, we're going to focus on something else for now, and then keep in mind what happened before, and when there's another part, they go, oh wait, what works really well with what we've done in the past? Oh, we'll tie things together and go from there and reiterate this part of the game, and now give that a little bit of attention. And having the lore and the settings with that, and the story-driven delivery of content, it gives a way to make people aware of what's happening and to give them options. And if people care about it and they look at how well written and connected the setting is, they can even get more excited into the game and stick out even longer.
Yeah. The another thing that I think about is events create things happening. Things happening involves people engaging with it. People use equipment and stuff when they engage with these things. That has secondary market influences. You know, I know several people who pay very close attention to what's going on in the lore, not because they give a shit about what Celis Agard is doing, but they want to know what is the next thing that is coming, so that way they can make sure that they have what everybody needs on the market, so that way they buy their thing. You know what I mean? That's a big piece of this. Understanding what's happening allows you to understand the universe more, and things happening in the sandbox, whether they be because of CCP or because of players. That's what creates the texture that makes any of this interesting at all.
And if CCP is working on something and they're talking about it with the CSM and they're looking for feedback, having somebody, hey, wait, wouldn't it be really cool if it could be connected to this or to that? Like, it could be something where they go, that might work, and it would help to make it better. But the one thing that I really want to stress, the CSM are not developers. We don't have any actual power to say, CCP, you have to do this or that. We are there to provide feedback to whatever CCP brings up to us. And we are there to bring things to the attention of CCP from within the player base of the game. Like there could be an issue. CCP might not be aware, and then being spread out throughout the community, getting that feedback, pulling it together, and bringing it up to CCP like, hey, CCP, this is an issue, and this is why it is an issue. That's also
Right.
very crucial feedback to give to CCP instead of you have to do this or you have to do that. Like, it does not work that way with the CSM.
So I think that one of the biggest values, and you kind of touched on this a little bit, is the quality of the communication from the CSM.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why is I say this is because, like, so as a developer, they've got so much information, feedback coming in at them, right? They've got to be able to sift the signal from the noise. And so I'm sure that there's plenty of red flags, or there's plenty of things that, like, basically immediately get suggestions kind of dismissed because it shows
Mhm.
that you don't know what you're talking about or whatever, right? Like, if in your discussion you show the opposite of what their goals are, then your feedback is like you're trying to get something done that they're not trying to get done, and they know that now. And so they might not necessarily, they're listening to your feedback, but they're not going to jump on it.
Yep.
So in the same way, there's a lot of things when the CSM are all a bunch of null blocked guys who are very focused on numbers and mechanics and all that kind of stuff. I fear that they will pitch an idea or conceptualize a problem without taking the lore into account. The best example that comes to mind is the idea of, like, NPC stations in drone lands, right? This is one of the most requested kind of things from nullsecers, that often from the lore standpoint, it's just like, well, there's a reason why there's no NPC stations there, right? It'd be really weird for there to be NPC stations
Mhm.
there. And so I wonder how many times, from CCP's point of view, that discussion has been short-circuited when it could have gone on if there was just somebody there that knew how to massage the pitch well enough to be like, well, what about if the empires start doing forceful, like, trying to occupy those areas? Maybe there's a whole thing about the building of those stations and all that kind of stuff. Like, you could do something with it, right? If you know what's going on, you know how to work it in. If you don't know how to work it in, then CCP might just be like, oh, that's just not how that works.
Yeah, but at the same time, you also touch a very important subject, and that's the stakes that CCP have in the game are completely different from our stakes as the players.
That's true.
Like, we could want something or not want something. Look at scarcity. Like, CCP has access to statistics. They have something in mind, a certain state within the game. It's like, we want to have that. And the player base could have a completely different stake and do not want that. So being able to keep that in mind and have something where if CCP, like, we want to achieve this or we're going to that direction, have people from different backgrounds provide their expertise to that discussion, will have a much better result at the end of the road where you've got different inputs. Another example could be the removal of the armor timer of medium structures. Like, in nullsec, it makes sense because medium structure spam made it such a grind to take territory or at least remove the possibilities for your opposition to have staging points. But if you look at something like high sec or low sec, that armor timer was crucial because it allowed you to gather more information on what you were up against and to rally the other allied groups or friends to help you defend that structure. Now, losing that armor timer, all of a sudden you had one timer and it was you made it or the structure died. There was no in between. So
Right.
that meant that groups that normally would be able to defend it in high sec or low sec now no longer had that option because they couldn't mobilize in time. So that would be a side effect where if people would be talking like, hey, we get it, but is there a way to separate it between Empire space being high sec and low sec and everybody and everything else?
Right.
And if it's
Yeah.
just mostly from one focus that only look at their territory and don't fully grasp or don't really care, because there are sentiments where people say everybody should just go to nullsec as soon as possible, because that's their way to play the game. And if
Right.
you've got other people on the CSM that could build arguments on why other areas matter too, or if certain changes or directions would have a negative impact and why that would be an issue and what the issue would be, that is highly beneficial. Another thing, like it might not be right away with what they're working on, but it could be something further down the road. For instance, with the seagulling in Poshfin, one of the things that I brought up is like, hey, look, I understand the issue, but instead of it making a zero sum game where it's just the fleet that contributed the most takes it all, can't we make it that you have to be within a certain range of the objective? That way, there's still room for play and counterplay for people running the site and people wanting to disrupt it. And with the Rise and Siege points, there was a limitation where you had to be within 100 kilometers. Otherwise, your efforts did not apply.
Right. So they appeared to have taken that feedback on
Mm-hmm.
the next thing.
Yeah,
That's really
because
cool. Yeah.
like they're working in development cycles, and um, like if I would get elected, whatever comes up is not likely to be for like the current expansion. That's probably mostly fleshed out. You're looking at further down the road, like 1, 2, or 3 years down the road with what they're working
Right.
on. Because it seems to me that looking at the last couple of years, they take a certain area of the game and they focus on that. Like that's going to be an expansion. And in the past, it was a big expansion and minor tweaks, but it was here's the expansion, this is it. And now they're more like, okay, we're going to make a first step, then we're going to expand and iterate upon it, and then work it out further down the road instead of a here it is all together. So they have more room to tweak. And you could see shifts where once it's nullsec, then they're got to focus on wormhole space or faction warfare. So there are cycles on what they're working on, and having a mixed CSM composition means that whatever they're working on, how matter further down the road it is, they will have a much more balanced feedback and get a better built expansion further down
Right.
the road, so that there's still something to enjoy for everybody and it's not a clear advantage for one side over the other or one part of space over the other.
And that does drive a point home, which is that, I talked to you about being the lore candidate, but you really have a fairly holistic understanding of EVE Online. You've been playing since it began. You've got, you do industry, you run fleets in some of the hardest areas, doing some of the most complicated concepts in PvE. You literally wrote the manual on how to fight drifters. So like, you come at this from a very broad, knowledgeable play style
Mm-hmm.
that is also very different than what you think of when you think of somebody with a lot of experience in EVE Online, right? You do have leadership positions, but not like null set. No, you're not null block. Most of the time when you think of like somebody who's really high up in EVE Online, you think of somebody who's like big in a null block or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You have done basically everything else. So that makes you a very good, like, force to be at that table, for sure.
Yeah, and my approach is also it's not about what I want. It's not about what I would like to see. It's more about whatever is brought up. That's where I bring my expertise in. That's where I keep things like, hey, this could be useful. This could be good. This could be bad. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? What is your objective? And I'm not really one like this is what I'm campaigning for. This has to happen. It's like, no. Whatever comes up, I'll represent the expertise that I have in these areas, and this is going to be my focus on the input.
Right. You do designate areas that deserve attention. Keep going with the story. Have a right balance of ISK, reward, and effort. Establish the Deathless as a unique faction. Sounds like they're on their way. AWOXing in insurgencies and faction warfare, which is a increasing problem. The current
It's one of the reasons why I decided to just not really bother too much anymore with the insurgencies, because I've had cases where I currently I can't really think of the site right now, but you have to basically hijack tankers and capture the 10,
Hmm.
um, where me and somebody else, like, we did 8 of the 10. We were bringing in the ninth, and after we cleared 8, one group came in. They did nothing. They just started shooting the NPCs. They waited until it was almost completed, and then they just started shooting everybody to complete it, and basically take everything from the people that actually put in the work. And I was lucky enough that I was in the right ship and that they could not blow me up. But
Right.
it's really frustrating if you do like 80-90%. It's a zero sum content site, and you get nothing even though you put in all the work. Like in that particular case, they didn't kill me, so I got my 130,000 LP for my effort. But getting shut out that way and there's no real counter, that's not going to be good. That just means that it's going to be few groups that going to dominate it or basically monopolize it, and that is a guaranteed way to put aspects in the game into, yeah, no, it doesn't really matter. There's not enough interaction with it to dedicate more resources on further iterating on it. Like, it's an awesome option. There's a lot of fun to be had in faction warfare and insurgencies, but there has to be a balance. And the AWOC thing is not in a good spot right now.
Which goes back to the point of like how much of this game that you've experienced, because like, oh, suddenly he's also commenting on faction warfare smartly. Like, it's like, so that's pretty cool. But
It helps to have connections and be connected with people throughout the game. Very good. Like, hey, I've heard something about this aspect. This is something you interact with. Can you confirm? Can you reiterate? Or I've just heard about the issue, but they couldn't fully explain it. Could you explain it to me? Like, that helps a lot. That even if it's not like you might know things about it, but it might not be your area of expertise, then that's where the connections come in. To
that
reach
said,
out
I've
to
seen you out there
people
doing
and
it.
have people reach out to you.
I've seen you put in the work. But all right, so how do you feel about the state of Pochvin at the moment?
I feel that Poshvin is underutilized. Like, it has room for so much more. Currently, it's just basically about the Flashpoint observatories and little else. Like, yeah, there's people who are using it as the highway, filament in, filament through. Um, but if I'm looking at, for instance, with the wormhole encounters you could have, they're a lot of fun. The drifters are, I love them, especially if they have Doomsday, because making them miss is a lot of fun, and teaching it to other people is even better. Um, but the options that they have with Poshvin and use it, for instance, to start hit and run by jumping out of Poshvin into minor victory systems. Like, the ore is there. It feels like, as a side effect of decisions made in the past by certain groups, um, once World War B was over, the big blocks settled in, and it's now down to a very select few who basically dominate the Flashpoint observatories, and that's all the focus right now. Like, I feel it could have so much more. They stopped talking about what was happening in Skarkon on the planet, which was at the time really cool to see that there was still stiff resistance.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel that there's a lot more that can be done with Poshvin than the state it is in right now. The loyalty point store is extremely limited. Um, it's more like, yeah, it's we're here now. We need the next step, but we don't know what the next step is going to be and when it's going to come. Like, there's hints at it with the strife between the Triglavians and the Sleepers and the Drifters. So hopefully we'll see some of the potential conflict also include things in Passion.
So how many times have you run for CSM already?
This is going to be my 5th run.
What brings you back? Like, why do you not like look at the results and be like, well, I guess this isn't for me, but you keep on coming back. What is it that's continuing to drive you in the face of that?
Well, one of the things is that when I first ran, I had a talk with Mike Azariah, and he also mentioned, like, look, it took me 5 runs before my name was out there and people to start seeing what I had to add and what my value would be if I was on the CSM. So it's really difficult to just have a one and done kind of deal. Like, you have to put in the effort, and sometimes um, you're just in a relatively tough spot, because if I'm looking at the people that would potentially vote for me, there's also people like Kashal, Mike Azariah, and other candidates that are not necessarily focused on nullsec but on other parts of the game, and that pool of votes is much smaller, and that means that people like Kashol are more likely to get elected because they get a higher number of number one votes, so they last long enough.
Right.
But I have seen that I have a solid shot to make it at least within the top 20. I could get close to between 11th and 15th if the votes are there and there aren't too many other candidates that run on a similar platform. Um, so with CCP basically saying, so the first 10 get elected, we get to choose 2 from those ranked 11 to 20. Like, that opened the door up of like, okay, so I'll just going to keep running. Getting within the top 20 is a realistic thing, and it's a different way to stay connected with the game, to just listen to what other people are talking about, like what issues are there, and I care about the game. So that's everything combined. It's like, I care about the game. You have to, in general, run a couple of times if you don't have a big block backing you.
Right. It does
And I
prove
feel
that you have
it's
you're,
more about when it's going to happen.
that's a good way to think about it. So, yeah, and it certainly shows that you've got both the care, the staying power, and the dedication to the CSM. It would be really funny if you ran for CSM for 5 years and then finally got it and just was one of those people that like ghosted the CSM the entire time and just picked up the free accounts and whatnot. I don't think you would.
Oh, well, no.
Quite the opposite. I think that that's such a ridiculous notion. It kind of lends to the point of like how good of a CSM member that you would be. You mentioned Mike Azariah, who is running, and it is a good point that like Mike Azariah is the example of the non-block candidate who has managed to get himself elected. And you're right, it took him 5 years of failed runs before he got elected, because it takes that long to kind of collate enough people around you as opposed to everyone else who you seem to be close to, right?
Building relations is crucial for the CSM, both with different player bases, with different voter bases, but also within CCP. Because, yeah, you got the big
Right.
meetings, but you also have smaller meetings with different teams. And if you manage to build the relationships, like for instance with Mike Azariah, he could tell you or know, like, oh, if you want to do this, that's the person to talk to, or that's the person to talk to for that subject. So it's something that you can be successful in your first run and have an amazing impact. On average, though, it's going to take a bit of while because you need to build those relationships. The people within CCP need to get a bit understanding of you, like what are you about, how do you approach it, and sometimes it's more about finding the right person to deliver the message, because you could have 5 candidates deliver the same message and it's going to be received differently from each candidate.
Sure, totally. What just happened? Hold on. I messed up. Something's messed up. Your camera's gone. There it is. Okay. So, yeah. And I think that another piece to this is 2022 and 2023 in particular. We saw after Invasions this massive focus by the player base on lore, RP, pro Triglavians, pro what, blah 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 blah. There was a lot of that, and so you really suddenly became a face in the crowd in that sense. Arcia Elkin ended up getting on the CSM during that time.
I'm very happy she got elected because after her term, I also talked with different people, including those with a direct link to the CSM, and they're like, no, it had an impact. Like it did add things to the CSM that we didn't know we were missing before. So
Right.
at least in that way, it feels really good and a bit of a validation that with Arcia making it and being acknowledged by the CSM, like, nope, she is the lore candidate, and that it
Right.
had added value to the CSM, like that's an amazing motivator to at least keep going.
Yeah, but this year there isn't really that divide. There's Prospector Shiplock, I think is his full name.
Mhm.
Containo Records. And like maybe you could say Drake, but overall, I mean, like it has kind of quieted down.
Yep.
But I don't think the need for a candidate has quieted down. So I think that's kind of my way of saying, like, I personally recommend you voting for Dutch Gunner. I voted for Dutch Gunner for the last several years. I will say that if you can bring yourself to do it, you should probably put Dutch Gunner at the top of your list, because of the quote unquote wild cards, because of his history, I think Dutch Gunner probably, again, I'm going to have like full analysis of my CSM next week, and Dutch Gunner's right here. So of course I'm going to say positive things. No, I'm just kidding. But
You can be critical.
yeah. No, what I will say is, like, he probably has the best chance to be a dark horse candidate that also provides a lot of value for my viewers, I should say, right? Like, there's a lot of decent candidates out there, but you've put in a lot of work to build up a thing to the point where if enough people decide to put you as their number one, you're going to get over the edge. How close were you last time?
Last year I made it to either 19 or 20.
Okay. But again, like, if we can get him
So
past the
the first
threshold,
year I
people's
ran-
votes.
The first year I ran, I ended up at, I think, number 17. And there was one big number of votes that had me at number 2 and the other person at number 1. That person dropped out at spot 16. And if that voting block of those group of ballots had the other way around, and I would have been number 1 instead of number 2, that would have pushed me at least to number 12.
So I say that regardless of whoever else you're voting for this year, try to put Dutch Gunner at the top, so that way we can keep him in there, and then we can sort out the rest afterwards. That's what I think.
Yep.
So
It certainly
that's what I'm
helps.
going to recommend.
It really helps. If you think somebody else you would like to see on the CSM more, please put that person on one. It's your vote. It's what you want to see on the CSM. And if you want to put me on the ballot because I'm approachable, I care, I don't have a bias about one game style or the other. I'm not here to say this is the way to play the games. Like, oh, you play it that way. Cool. Tell me more. So if you still want to put me high up, much appreciated. And
there are plenty of other people to consider. I just did
yeah,
an interview with Frozen Fallout that's available on my YouTube. He did a very good job, and he would make an exceptional faction warfare candidate, I would say. Also very experienced, but Dutch Gunner, I think, is something special.
yeah, it's so hard every year because there are so many good candidates, but then there's so limited number of seats where you go, oh, I would have loved to see more, but the voting base, there's not enough seats. Darn it, we have to make choices. Okay, it sucks
Yeah.
that we can't include these people, but then we'd have to put it this way. Like it happens. I just hope that we see a balanced CSM with representative in faction warfare, like with Passion or Edencom, with industry, with market, high sec, low sec, null sec. Like have it spread out like that, and also have people that just started playing or are still relatively new to the game, because we need those to make sure that we have an as balanced possible input and feedback to CCP to help make the game even better than it is today.
Right. So, and then I guess to close this kind of topic, I want you to speak not to the voter base, but to CCP. Because CCP has announced that they are doing the whole, like, they picked 2 people who did well to kind of be part of the CSM regardless of votes. So why should CCP pick you as one of those 2 in the event that you're close but don't get past the threshold?
I would say I make a good candidate to be worthy of that choice because I work with other people. I don't work against them. I listen to what other people bring to the table. And if there are different aspects from different suggestions that work well, I combine those and build the case for that. And if there's something I'm not entirely sure on, I first double check with different people within the community. I communicate with other CSM representatives to make sure that we're there as a CSM to be the communication line between CCP and the player base, and with our own fields of expertise to give our input to what they're working on.
That's a good answer. Yeah. I'd say because I'm going to bug you either way, so you might as well have me. All right. Well, anything else you want to say on your own behalf or on behalf of your campaign that I might have missed?
Nope, not really. Like, if you have questions, feel free to ask the questions in my official CSM campaign post. If you want to voice your support or criticism, feel free to do it there too. And please vote. If you're in a position to do so, vote. And if you have contacts with areas of the game that you care about, get them to vote too.
Yes, the CSM election is the most important election of the year, bar none, no questions asked. So make sure to be ready to vote next week.
And for everybody that just goes, it's just about the null sex, well, bring in your vote, fill in 10 slots, because the more votes there are, the less of an impact those bigger voting blocks will have, and the more your vote will be carried on with getting the people you want to represent you to be elected.
And I have added Dutch Gunner's forum post both in the chat and also in the description down below. If you need it, please go ahead and check it out. But thank you for coming, Dutch. It's been a fun little marathon of almost 3 hours.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was
definitely
fun
not what you were expecting.
Yeah, no, it happens. It happens. Like, some things you don't expect, and you just roll with it and make the best of it.
Yeah. So please, if you got anything, you can also put comments down below. If you're interested in Dutch addressing anything, I talk to Dutch all the time, so maybe we can even have him on here one more time before the election, but it's obviously a very short time, so we'll see.
I'm sure we can schedule something.
Why is this? Okay, there we go. All right. Well, all right, that's cool. I think, so to close today's stream, I'm going to do a different thing, a little bit of a different thing, which is that I'm going to cover the main topics. You know, I've been going over the news and analysis as things have been happening for the last several weeks. But the issue is that sometimes these videos, you know, the live streams are 3 hours long, right? And editing it down in order to get what I want when it's been 3 hours of rambling can also be quite a bit of an ask.
Yep.
So we're going to try something else right now, which is that I'm going to just do a segment where we blow through the Revenant news in like a concise way, so then we can snip that out and make it into its own segment. Sound like a good plan? But Dutch, you want to stay here for that, or do you want to take off?
I'll still be here. Go for it.
Okay. Greetings, fellow Empyreans. I am Ashtarothi, the voice of New Eden, and this is what we have coming in Revenant on the 12th of November. We just got this information. It is the 10th of October as we got this. The trailer dropped today, and I just wanted to go over some of the big details in it for you. First of all, this is an event that is, or this is an expansion that is surrounded around the Deathless, the new power broker in New Eden that runs Zarzak. This event, there have been events that have been going on involving the Drifters and the Triglavians since early May or whatever that involves heightened conflict. The Drifters eventually tried to seize Zarzak, and a mysterious structure began to decloak. This appears to be what the entire expansion is kind of surrounded upon, and this has led the Deathless to kind of put out a call for us, both pre-expansion and post-expansion, to help contribute to this war against the Drifters. So for you, what this means is that right now there is in Zarzak a turn-in structure that allows you to turn in the addivums that you can get from relic sites, as well as the shoot, I forget the name of the clone tissue samples. I don't remember, but there's clone tissue samples that are dropping in the Blood Raider sites that are also turned in at the Zarzak structure for different rewards. These rewards appear to be, well, I'm not 100% sure what the rewards are, but it could be new implants and whatnot. It isn't the new ships that are coming. In fact, there are new ships coming. This does not appear to be the source of that, but they are coming soon enough. It is a new pirate battlecruiser and destroyer, the Tholos destroyer and the Cenotaph battlecruiser. This represents a new ship line of the Deathless, which is the long missing Mimitar Kaldari hybrid pirate ship line. We do not know exactly what their bonuses are. However, we do know that it will offer a covert ops cloaking device and a bonus to stasis webifier resistance, which means that stasis webifiers will be less effective on these ships than other ships. And they will also deploy a new weapon system known as the Scarab Breacher Pods, which will do damage over time. We will get more details about that as we get closer to the expansion. In addition to that, there is new mercenary dens that can be deployed onto skyhooks, in particular skyhooks that are related to personnel, so temperate and oceanic planets. They link with that skyhook and seem to change the nature of both what the skyhook produces and the sites that are available in the area. It starts generating activities called tactical operations, which can influence the production and within the skyhook. This shunts some of the personnel that is going from the skyhook and turning them into encrypted infomorphs, which are a new commodity that have been added to the game that presumably the Deathless will be interested in as an alternative way of dealing as an alternative to how to interact with the skyhooks. There will be new and enhanced corp projects. Specifically, corp projects will now have the ability to have more than one objective, or a bit more granularity in the way that they set up their requirements. Right now, you basically have to have one material per project, but now you're going to be able to do multiple materials and set priorities as well as deadlines in order to communicate to your group what is required. Also, the ship replacement program project is going to be upgraded to make it so that you can compensate people based on the loss's value instead of just a set compensation as it is now. There is a Skinner update where this kind of comes in two major ways. First of all, while Skinners can currently only have one pattern, after this Skinner update, Skinner will be able to have two separate patterns that you can kind of lay on top of each other and modify independently, as well as the ability to share your skins with individuals, it seems through corporation or alliance, perhaps directly with individuals. But the key here is that when you're targeting your listing to your corp or alliance, this circumvents the Paragon Hub listing cost. However, it seems to be being augmented or replaced by Evermark cost. These are skins that must be produced already. It's just this is a new way of distributing those sequence skins throughout your organization. In addition to that, there is a new skin, or sorry, the new skill that reduces Paragon Hub transactions called Paragon Partnership. And there is a new layout for the visuals of ships. This doesn't, basically this replaces the show info panel for ships, but it kind of lays it out in a cleaner way. And now your daily goals can, if there are daily goals that are like too hard to do, or like you can't take care of it because of other things, now you can just pay Evermarks to complete your air daily goals to continue to make your progress along your track in the event that you couldn't progress normally. And of course, Eve Vanguard is receiving its biggest update yet, which is pretty much what they said with Solstice. More details are coming soon, but the next Eve Vanguard event is going to be on the 28th of November to the 9th of December. So given the fact that the expansion is coming on the 12th of November, it'll be 6 days after the expansion begins. And there will be daily rewards and logins for this. So it is a very cool Deathless themed expansion. It isn't quite as nullsec oriented as we thought they were, but there are new nullsec opportunities in interaction with skyhooks that involve temperate or oceanic planets. Please let me know down below. Are you interested in this expansion? I'm personally hyped for the new ships. What's got you excited? What would you like to see in Vanguard? Why didn't we get our PI announcement? All that below. Make sure to like the video before you leave if you like these kind of shorter, tighter summaries. And with all that said, I've been Ashrothi, the voice of New Eden. Until next time, I'll see you in space. All right. Good? Good. Good. All right. Cool. And you were there the whole time.
Give me drifters. I want to touch our doomsdays. Get new stuff. Yes. Figure out the clues.
Yes, we got to go. We got to figure this stuff out. I'm going to be involved. I'm going to be out there. I am very pumped with this whole event. This is like, I've been wanting something that I can like sink my teeth into since Havoc. So I'm pretty excited about this. I was going to do the reading of the New Eden News as well, but man, this has gone on for 3 hours. I got to leave something for tomorrow.
Things happen.
Yeah, I got to leave something for tomorrow. It would feel kind of weird to do the readings now, although I guess I did do the reading of one of them. The Rada Oki Caravan. Yeah, it's been a day.
You can take your time if you want to do it tomorrow and be fully prepared with your second cup of coffee.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, this puppy sleeping on my lap made sure that I didn't get... But I made it. We made it through the day. We made it through the stream. All right. Do you have anything else to say, Dutch?
Nope. Thank everybody for your attention. If you put me on the ballot, much appreciated. And from my side, see you out there in space.
Thank you guys so much. And once again, I've been Ashrothi, the voice of New Eden. Thank you guys for your support, for sharing these videos, liking and commenting, getting it out there, checking out my stuff, all that stuff. There's merch down below. You can join the Convocation of Empyreans. We're maximizing player engagement with EVE Online. And of course, you can, if you haven't gotten your 1,000,000 free SP, make sure to use the link down below, so that way you can get your 1,000,000 free SP, and it helps out those who help out the channel. So all that said, I've been Ashrothi. Oh, thank you to Punch earlier and some other people. I've been Ashrothi, the voice of New Eden. This has been Dutch Gunner on behalf of us. Thank you guys so much for coming. And until next time, we'll see you in space.
Bring on voices.